Namaste, good morning, Adab, Sat Sri Akal. Take your pick for whatever. I think it promises to be a wonderful morning, and we are all looking forward to a very stimulating, very absorbing discussion over the next 2.5 hours. And I would want everyone, every participant to stay on, and if you find that at the end of it all, there will be considerable amount of value addition in your approach toward the subject. Beyond academics, time for putting the spotlights on skill development. That's the topic that we are going to be seized of during the next 2.5 hours. You see, the two key words in this subject are academics and skill development. And when I got these subjects, I did a bit of a research and looked at the etymological origins of the word academics. And to my horror, when I traced the origin of the word academics, I was taken to the 17th century of Academy of Athens, which says the meaning of academics is something which is theoretical, something which is not practical, something which does not lead to decision. Even in normal parlance, we say academically speaking. So academics really stays on in the corridors of something where it's only semantics, only limited to a very, very small perspective. But what we need to do is to start looking seriously in terms of being actually be able to be proactive in delivering. So I was a bit of a shock that is that what we've been delivering to our children for the last so many years? I was reminded of a famous quotation by Albert Einstein who said, see, the only thing which I remembered while I had forgotten everything else which I learned in school was education. Now we need to sort of redefine the concept of education. Is it only limited to the books or the links on the Google, on Wikipedia, etc., or is it much more beyond that? I think education really, and that's what Einstein mentioned in his memoirs, that his education concept was very proactive, actually doing things in his own hand. It's a classic statement that we always make, that if you tell me, I forget, but if you make me do it, I remember. I think the doing part has been conspicuous by its absence in our overall academic performance. And we seek academic excellence, but we don't seek excellence in our skill development or in to be able to capacity to deliver, to be able to actually achieve positive results. We are wonderful. We are very literate people. We top up the spelling bee competition the world over, but otherwise we are useless in terms of when it actually comes to be able to. We can't even fix a screw properly. We can't even fix a bulb properly on the ceiling, and we all wait for the bulb to drop down. Be that as it may, and we've also seen the statistics that not more than 2 to 3% component of the worldwide figures is restricted, is applicable as far as India is concerned in terms of the sphere of skill development. We really need to scale it up in comparison to the countries where its level is about 60%, 70%. In South Korea, it seems about 90%. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, we really need to sort of put on our thinking caps, become a little more dexterous, a little more, and provide sufficient amount of information, skilled concepts. We use the word in Sanskrit, we use the word dakshata, expertise, to be able to do things. And I think these are the kind of traditions that we had in our country. And we really need to sort of take our students to that level so that the country, India, becomes a very powerful hotbed and hub for a lot of activity which promotes considerable amount of skill development. Anyway, these are some of the preliminary thoughts that I thought share with you. Today we have 3 sessions. The first session says how can schools integrate skill development in the curriculum and learning. And I think this is where we need to start. We need to sort of make sure that the curriculum structure is suitably modified, is reoriented in giving a better kind of an emphasis upon the skill part of it. We've got concepts like project-based learning, active learning, activity learning, all these things, names are the flipped class concept. We have to sort of encourage students to come forward. But in what manner it can be more immersive, more grounded, That is the kind of forward action that we all need to take collectively. So, in what manner we can integrate into curriculum and our learning. And ladies and gentlemen, the moderator for this session is none other than Dr. Gurmeet Bindra, the founder trustee of Delhi Public School, Rajpura. So, Dr. Bindra, I hand this over to you. You have next about 40 minutes, and you have three wonderful panelists, four in fact, to assist you in your journey on this subject. On to you.
Thank you, Mr. Malhotra, and a very warm good morning to all of you, the esteemed panelists, the hosts, and the participants for the day's event. I warmly welcome each one of you to the second episode of the EdFridays. It's a series, it's an initiative by ScooNews, none other than Ravi Santlani behind this entire project. EdFridays, as we all know, is a virtual learning series for educators, by educators, and it is my proud privilege to host the first session of episode 2, which carries a broad theme beyond academics, time for putting the spotlight on skill development. Thank you, Mr. Malhotra, for giving us such a fantastic contest setting. You made our task easier by setting the right tone, going into the actual epistemology of the key words and talking a little about Sanskrit words in addition to your 17th century reference, which gives us a very broad backdrop to be taking our discussions forward. Our specific topic for this session is how can schools integrate skill development in their curriculum and learning. Sessions later will talk about broader aspects of the NEP and all others, but we will confine our discussion. And when I say the word confine, I don't mean limit, but I only mean focus, that we will focus our discussions specifically to school curriculum and learning. And it's my proud privilege to introduce our esteemed panelists. Let me begin with a round of introductions by introducing myself once again, Gurmeet Bindra, founder, principal, and trustee of the Delhi Public School at Rajpura. We have luminaries from the field of education. Up first is Ma'am Naina Dhillon, Principal, Ecole Global International Girls School, Dehradun. Ma'am Dhillon is a master's in English literature. She's been an academician for over 2 decades, and she still continues to teach grades 9 and 11. I think a principal who is a teacher first is the best principal that a school can have. She's also an avid mountaineer and is a former national level runner. What more can a boarding school ask for in terms of a combination between academics and sports? Up next, we have Ma'am Rashmi Malik, Principal, Salwan Public School, Gurgaon. Ma'am Malik is a master in information technology, again with over 2 decades, more than 25 years of experience in the field of education. She has been instrumental in starting internship programs in schools for various skill-based courses. These internships are skill-based. They are an amalgamation of various subjects offered by the CBSE. Ma'am Malik, amongst a list of very enviable awards, is a CBSE National Principal Awardee 2019. We also have with us Dr. Suchitra Bhattacharya, Principal, Manav Rachna International School, Faridabad. Dr. Bhattacharya is an educationist, an administrator, a writer, a social worker, and a winner of many awards. And it doesn't stop here. She's a classical singer and dancer too. All our panelists are with an experience of more than 2 decades. We welcome you all, and we welcome Mr. Sanjay Datta, Principal, Maharana Mewar Public School, Udaipur. Mr. Datta is also the honorary principal of the Maharana Mewar Vidya Mandir, Udaipur. These are educational initiatives of the royal family of Mewar. A very unassuming man, Mr. Datta, when asked to introduce himself, talks only about his art school, an initiative which is very, very close to his heart. And I was privileged to visit it on one of my ScooNews conference at Udaipur, and I was mesmerized. So we have, as our panelists, educationists with a fantabulous, incredible experience, all in different fields, and we are looking forward to their insights on this topic from diverse dimensions. So let me begin by doing a little bit of context setting, which says that the world is an uncertain world. We are talking about the VUCA world all the time. That's the buzzword. We are talking about unprecedented challenges which have been driven by accelerated globalization and technological advancements. But when we look at these challenges, we must also look at the myriad opportunities that they offer. India has only 2% of the workforce skilled compared to other countries. Mr. Malhotra just spoke about some others that he threw light on with his statistics. Now, we invite you all to help us understand that in this challenging world, what are the skills that our children need to navigate themselves through this world and bring a better world where they can be meaningful contributors. So what is our understanding of the skills? The definition of the word skills has itself gone through a lot of evolution. So maybe begin with Ma'am Dhillon. What is your understanding of the word skill development in schools, please? Ma'am Dhillon, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Right. So good morning, ma'am. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Not at all deserving of it, though. And thank you and welcome to all the panelists and everybody else who's watching. So, ma'am, very quickly, I think, like what Mr. Vinod said in the beginning, that CBSE is looking at introducing, of course, has introduced skill subjects, and we've got a wide variety of subjects to choose from. And I think that's a great step as far as moving away from the pressure on academics and moving out of this thing craze of getting a 99% to get into a college and education being just a sum total of your 3-hour board exam. But as far as I'm concerned, I know that these subjects will, of course, help children to get a brief insight, if not only maybe just scratching the surface vis-a-vis different professions. So they get to know a little about different industries, banking, insurance, multimedia, textile, wellness, etc. But when I think of skill development, I think we need to look at skills that will define us and sort of bring up our children to be worthy individuals so that they can then be good enough to meet the challenges in the outside world. And for me, skill development involves life skills, where we develop a curriculum which is not just introducing a couple of other subjects as supplementary subjects, but within our curriculum, we focus on things like assertiveness, conflict resolution, give the students leadership roles, involve them in decision making, get them to work on maybe a business plan, which is not necessarily specific to one lesson in the day. Because I think that runs the risk of it just being taken very lightly, very much like what would happen to a moral science class, but actually involve them so that they learn qualities like discipline, leadership, honesty. I think these are the skills that are really required to prepare students to step out into the world and face the world head on. So for me, skill development is much more than just a particular subject being added to the syllabus. I think it involves giving them responsibilities, involve them in decision making, get them to carry out a project, initiate a plan, work on it, and own responsibility for the net result. And if we can do that across all subjects, why limited to just a few skill subjects that might be added in the curriculum? I think that's where we finally see a shift. And then we move away from the focus on just a board exam, because all these things are equally important. What the child is learning on the sports field, what the child is learning vis-a-vis through dance, through adventure activities, through exchange programs. It has to be something that is all pervasive. It has to be in the fabric and the culture of the school where these skills are being taught all the time. And for that, number one, of course, we have to believe in it. I think there are certain things that are just timeless. Whatever challenges we might face, there are so many timeless values that have to be taught, that have to be integrated into the regular day of a school. And that could ideally lead to what I perceive as skill development.
Thank you, Nana, for your opening remarks on the topic. May I now invite Mr. Datta for his opening remarks on what he understands as a principle on skill of the concept of skills.
Good morning, Gurmeet ma'am. Good morning to you all. And thank you for that wonderful introduction and the mention that I only mentioned the art school, and that is for a reason, which I will come back to later. But just a bit of context setting, we talk about skills a lot these days. It's something I was going through a Skills India report 2014, which I would like to just flash here for a minute. And when NSDC was set up and the Australians were at the forefront of this movement, the whole idea was that you should bring skilling into Indian education. Not only because we have been talking about it right from time when Mahatma Gandhi came out with the Nai Talim. Now, if you understand, if you go back to that basic document, it was about skilling people to earn a livelihood. From there till today, where have we moved? If you connect all the dots and if we see, then in one form or the other, the word skill keeps coming back. It comes in forms of soft skills, which Nana ma'am just talked about, how to have a brotherhood, how to have camaraderie, how to get along with people. It has a connotation of vocational skills, which I just mentioned before this. The 21st century skills, we were turning a leaf in century, life skills have been talked about. So skills of what order, of what nature we wish to have in our curriculum, and what can schools absorb is what we need to, I think, decide first. Because schools are essentially places where you give the students building blocks. And if we see the curriculum and the books and the NCERT books from the days when we were students, certainly the volume has been reduced by and by. If you pick up a class 12th history book of, let us say 80 or 84, 85 or 90s when we were there, today's content is much, much less. It's already been reduced. But what has it been replaced with? If you look at it, you're talking about, dressings, sports, history of everything. Now, when you do skills, when you are aiming to make a person multi-skilled, and the holistic development of learners is what is mentioned in the NEP, where it says the overall thrust of curriculum and pedagogy would be learning how to learn. And the goal will be to create holistic and well-rounded individuals equipped with 21st century skills. We are opening up an entire range of skills that schools can be absorbed, can be given. 6th to 8th, we are supposed to have industry exposure for kids, something which we used to have at a much later date. So my opening remarks are that, including this panel, we decide upon what kind of skills we are talking about are essential to be ingrained at the school level. And then we find ways and means to integrate it in the curriculum rather than just talk about skills per se. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Datta. That was very, very exhaustive. And now, ma'am Rashmi, I come to you. So Mr. Malhotra spoke about academics and its true meaning in terms of epistemology. And Mr. Datta spoke about grades 6 to 8, the introduction of skill subjects by the CBSE, which now they've talked about not only for grades 6 to 8, now they've brought out for grade 9 and 10, 11 and 12, which is a natural progression of what we are offering from grade 6 to 8. Nena spoke about, soft skills and other skills, life skills. Ma'am Rashmi, you have been very, very instrumental in the skill development programs in schools. Where do you see an overlap, if any, or gaps in any, in this epistemological knowledge and skill development? Because acquisition of skills is not enough. We need to mobilize and transfer this learning. So where do you see the overlap or the gap between epistemic knowledge and between skill development with specific reference to the school curriculum?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Vineet and Mr. Vinod, for having me here, ScooNews. Thank you so much. And I'll take you again, like Mr. Vinod was talking about, that into the history of our world, where in India especially we had the Gurukul. So skilling was always there. Whenever we were in schools or Gurukuls or wherever the educational institute is there, in day-to-day, working of these institutes, the skilling is being done. And I would like to, mention one statement, which I think we all as educationists would agree, that human beings have the inherent capability of skilling themselves. When we talk about the children, When we were kids, we knew how to catch up the speaking skills and listening skills and all those things. Then why do we need the educational institutes? So for ancient time, we had the institutes to polish the skills for the war, or otherwise usually the children used to be sitting at home and learning their skills from their family members. So that was pretty easy. Then came the pre-independence area and post-independence era of our country. I'll talk specifically about, wherein we thought that okay, we need to prepare them for the jobs because our country needs people, working force. So we started working towards creating workforce for the country. And somewhere down the line, we just forgot absolutely about de-skilling, those skill things which were there earlier in our society started getting lost because our children, if you see now, are in very much comfortable zones. And when they're in comfortable zones, they don't have that hunger to learn something or to have an expertise in anything. Right. So now the time has come when we have, again, because of NEP also, the people have again started thinking about skilling. What is supposed to be done? The 21st century skills have to be inculcated. The curriculum has to be changed. And there are certain guidelines in the NEP which are talking about how to do it, for the people who have not been experimenting. But as you rightly said, that many of the educators have been experimenting for years to skill their children. If you remember, I don't know, in my time when I was in the school, we had a period called an SCPW period. So we were being taught about life skills there. We were being taught about, at that time, those bulb, how to change the bulb in the at home, or how to do the stitching, etc. Right? But somewhere down the line, just focusing on becoming an engineer or becoming only a doctor, certain things changed in the education system. Now again, it's a very, very exciting era, where we are again started talking about how are we doing our academics? Are we inculcating any skills in that? Please, we all know that even if a teacher is teaching a chapter in this classroom, the skill is being transferred. There is some or other skill being transferred. The only thing is that we have to ensure that we are mindful about it, that what exactly we are transmitting, what exactly we are transferring, right? Yes, the world is a VUCA world. Yes, we don't know what kind of future our children have. So we need to be, as an educator, very mindful about that the children are getting maximum amount of exposure at all levels. So Mr. Datta was talking about 6 to 8, the exposure to 6 to 8. I'm talking about across the school right now. Our job as educational institute and leaders is only to provide opportunities of exposure to the kids. And that is what my right now feeling about skilling the student is. Yes, the process, the way we'll do will come, obviously, when the discussion will go ahead. Thank you.
Rashmi ma'am, I'm sorry I missed. Was it my network that I missed, or did everyone miss what you were saying towards the end?
It's just you, ma'am. We heard her.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I will not ask you to repeat, but I've got a crux of what you were saying. I went off network, some issue. So Rashmi ma'am, thank you for that insight. And I lost you after you spoke about grades 6 to 8. But I'm just connecting the dots, like Mr. Datta said, that we are talking about CBSE, talking about introducing these skills-based subjects or skill development subjects and schemes from grade 6 to 8. And you mentioned about we having learned in SUPW changing the bulb. The joke today is looking at the number of unemployed engineers across the country. The joke today among engineering colleges is that a computer science engineer will not know how to change a bulb, because that's the domain of an electrical engineer. Now, Ma'am Suchitra, I come to you. When we talk about, say, countries like Korea, as mentioned by Mr. Malhotra, these countries believe in doing the fundamentals right, okay? Which is why in 2 generations, countries like Korea have moved from mass illiteracy to becoming educational world leaders. Obviously, they did something right. Now, when one goes and looks at their education policies and skill development, amongst other things, the top 3 that come out is student agency, rigor, and focus. I'll come to rigor and focus if time permits. But student agency largely is about students becoming responsible for their own learning. According to Ma'am Suchitra, according to you, what is the best time to introduce these skill-based subjects? And what is your opening remark on the importance of skill development and how it can be integrated in the curriculum given the current scenario in India?
Namaskar and good morning from New Delhi. Thank you so much, Dr. Gurmeet. Thank you, Mr. Ravi, for bringing me among such wonderful panel members. I will take a little ahead to answer your question from Rashmi Madam. Before that, let me just give a very personal experience of statistics, which always worries me as a leader. Many a times we have seen that students who are doing very well in school, where they are so conscientious about their marks with their parents also, go for first year in the engineering colleges or maybe they get their dream college. However, there is a dropout of 1 to 1.5% in the first year, thinking that stating that they are unable to manage the environment, maybe the curriculum, maybe the course. So that is where I think we need to worry. As school leaders, school principals and teachers, we need to prepare our children to ensure that they are comfortable at the position what they choose. So as ma'am was saying, we need to start. There is no age. I would also agree totally. For pre-primary level also, we need to teach them the soft skills about communication, about their attitude, about their adaptability. And a country like ours, where from independence there has been so much stress laid on the education system. However, though all these skills have been existing from much before, somewhere down the line, I think the syllabi, the rote learning procedure, we were lost a little. Now, in that case, we need to ensure that children are now exposed to the global scenario. Both the NEP and the pandemic came in such a coincidence that now everyone is exposed on a global platform. And for that, we have to ensure that our children are well equipped. So as I said, you had asked me where to start from. We need to start from early years. It did exist. Every teacher tries to do the best. However, we need to pay special emphasis on, as said before by my esteemed panel members, exposure is something which we need to do. Instead of only going into academics, we need to give them the exposure. I'm sure many schools, like progressive schools like ours and many of yours too, we are giving exposure to the children from class 8 level, 6 level. They go in for internship. They go in, get an exposure to the hotel management people, go inside, they spend the time there. We take the children to engineering colleges, dental colleges, and let them interact with the students or the professors. There they get to have a hand-on experience. What is it? Is it my cup of tea? Am I going for the right choice? And we, all of us, are now emphasizing on the fact with the students, we need to educate the parents, because most of the time we see that parents try to see their dreams through their children because they couldn't do it. Therefore, they want to see the same through the success of the child. Maybe the child is good in academics, but that's not everything. We need to ask the children, what is their call? What is their dream? What do they want? And the moment we can identify that, I think as school leaders, we need to ensure that we have meetings or counseling session with the parents from a tender age, because now every parent wants to make a Sania if you talk of the games, or if you talk of the scientists, they want to give exposure to everything. But then we need to tell the parents, we need to ask the children, is the child understanding? Is the child enjoying? So that should start from very small age. As I said, communication skills, we need to see that children know how to work in teams. We've got a number of Indian youth who are doing so well in academics. When they're exposed to the global world, they fail because of the teamwork, because they are not trained to be a good team member. Therefore, we need to teach them from middle school, maybe from primary school level also. Then we go to the senior classes and then give more exposure to such vocational trainings so that they know exactly what it is like. And of course, why Korea? There are many small countries, smaller countries, I would say, have gone much ahead in the demographic dividend because they have paid special emphasis on the education system. And with the NEP coming in, I am sure we are all geared up, but we need to implement. That is something which all, the responsibility lies in anyone, whoever is related to the education system. And I think also we are going to succeed and we are going to come up to a greater height. That's all I would like to say at the beginning.
Thank you, Suchitra ma'am. That was a very positive and optimistic approach to the entire thing, because we all understand that, the very complexity of the issue is because of its scale in a country like India. There has to be a complete cohesive approach. You gave a reference to Industry Connect also. So there has to be a very cohesive approach in terms of Industry Connect, in terms of policies. Fortunately, NEP is in place, and in terms of ground implementation, use the word implement, in terms of ground implementation. And we as school educators carry a huge responsibility. Ma'am Rashmi, you have been instrumental in conducting a lot of these internships regarding these skill-based trainings. Suchitra ma'am talked about implementation. So could we all have from you your insights onto two things? A, what are the challenges that one faces in implementing these programs that are so beautifully prepared by experts? And what, according to you, is a fix for these challenges? Because we need to take away from today not an understanding of the challenges, but also some valuable insights on how to address those challenges. So to you, ma'am Rashmi, from your experience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Bindra. The first and the foremost challenge is of the security of the child when we send them for the internship. That's the first challenge. Like if a child of class 6 is planned to be sent out to some organization or some, say, institute, so the challenge is the security. So fortunately, since last year, I'm very happy because everything can be done online. So we can send the teachers or representatives from here, okay, and they can meet the people over there and they can have a video tour and the discussion online with the kids. So that challenge has been sorted out because of this pandemic and 2020 technological revolution, etc. The other challenge is that not many students we are not able to expose all students to various places, because of the syllabus constraint and the time constraint, etc. So what we are doing right now is that we have a lot of skill-based courses in our school, like food production, we have fashion technology, media studies, we have introduced AI also. So on the basis of all these, because it has more of the practical thing, so we are able to take advantage of that time, of the practical time, from these things, and then we can send the children out. So we have various tie-ups with some hospitals also, with some hospitality management institutes also, wherein we are actually, sending groups of students there. Fortunately, not very large number of children are there. So, there is a group of 20 to 25 people, which is manageable. So when the pandemic was not there, that time we were able to send them across, say, a 2 days training or 3 days training or a weekday training, week-long training. And it really, really helps, especially, I would mention here the special need kids. They are absolutely benefited. And it feels so good when they come back and when they are nicely placed in the careers and they come back and they thank their teachers here and for the exposure and for the guidance toward these subjects. This is something which we all need to look for. The second thing which I would like to mention here is that we have in our school, it is compulsory for all the students to take 6 subjects. Okay, so we are not restricting our children to 5 subjects only. There has been many discussions with various parents, who refused that my child is very good in 5 subjects. Why a skill subject has to be given? But we are insisting that at least one skill subject the child has to take. So this is really, really bearing a lot of fruit, in the future of the child understand himself or herself, and there is a backup plan ready in this VUCA world. So that is something which I would like to share about our institution.
Thank you, ma'am. Rashmi, so you mentioned about the sixth subject and, parents not being very happy. So that definitely is a challenge as to how to make skilled subjects aspirational for children. Now, I spoke about student agency as one of the key focal points for any successful skill development program. Along with that, parallelly comes teacher agency. You spoke about security issues, about sending people, and then you have now in-house resource people. The advantage of doing a fantastic, well-structured, well-planned, well-thought-out skill development program is that while our students get to learn, there is also a lot of support that we provide to skilled people in terms of imparting this. I would like to invite Dr. Datta, because in his art school, I saw a fantastic example of where he brought in these artisans and everyone, skilled people. Otherwise, their skills will die out if their children don't take up. So if not their children, school children. So Dr. Datta, when we talk of any successful skill development program, facility and faculty are important. You wanted to talk about your art school. Why don't you give us some insight into this aspect of the program?
Thank you, Dr. Gurmeet, for narrowing down the discussion to what are we doing specifically. And I was listening to Dr. Suchitra as well as Dr. Rashmi Malik when they were talking about the difficulties, the practical difficulties that we face in terms of moving students or having a skilled faculty. And I will tell you my personal learnings, where they come from, because I was fortunate to grow up in a city where there were a lot of educational institutions in Ajmer. And there was a regional institute of education, which is part of NCERT, and there were Americans who set it up. So while we were kids, we watched with a lot of interest the professors who came to teach subjects performing those very things that they were talking about. So if there was an agriculture professor, it was not just talking about soil sciences, there was also a tractor which he was mending. And I think those were the things that seeped into us very early in our lives. And we realized that teachers have to be demonstrators. So when we created this art school, it started with, a view that we are not to just do art for the sake of art, but also for teaching technology and hopefully guide students into areas where they can make a living. And I will just very quickly share the journey with you. Rajasthan, there is always talk about block printing. I mean, no bias, ladies would know it better than men. So you have block printing technique being told to the students here, and then screen printing, something that has gone out gradually because now there is better technology, computer-based technology available. But believe you me, we still hand out certificates to our students which are screen print in school. And the paper is also made here. And then comes the next technology of printing, where you have computer aided you have a transfer, which is from a computer image. So your picture on a mug, which we see in a mall, or on a t-shirt, is again what we do. And then comes a 3D print. So there are 4 kinds of printing technologies being taught right there. And then there are local artisans and skills, like there is something called Sanji, which is a painting done on water. There is only one family which does it here now. And they're not ready to transfer that skill, but it would die, as Ma'am Gurmeet said, it's going to die out. So we have been drawing upon the local, because being in Udaipur, there is a challenge that, how much of industry visit can we do? We are not in a big city. So we have leveraged what we have. We have aided and supported the local industry. We have also grown upon it. Another instance that I would like to give about how kids pick up these directions are, Udaipur is very big for shooting of movies as well as for weddings. And I was in a conversation with Mr. Chetan Bhagat, and we were arriving at a consensus, what happens after class 10th to students, they go for the coaching. So he said, all right, very good. You're talking about all this art and all that I just talked about, but what happens to a kid after that? Don't you lose it to the industry? How are you able to justify what you are doing at the school level? And I was actually, flummoxed by that. But then to my aid came 3 of my students who were on that very interview set, who said that we have picked up things back in that art school, which have helped us to have design our careers in one or the other area of filmmaking. So you never know where you start and where you are going to wind up. The idea is to not just, because if you also look at the NEP, when they talk about your discussion-based, discovery-based, analysis-based education, they also say that education should not be in silos. You should open it up, just like we have tried to do, link art with technology. So you are not just teaching art for the sake of art, but you are also teaching them how different techniques and technologies are developed through the ages and how that can lead to a possible career. And then the students link that all up. So that has been our effort. That is something that we put on display as of date. Tomorrow, I don't know what is it that I'll be talking about, but that's one solid example that we can have of skilling at a school level and then leaving it to kids to find their careers in Hollywood or Bollywood, wherever they want to be.
Thank you, Dr. Datta. And Nena, one last question to you. And Rashmi talked about constraints of academics and timetable. So just think as if it's a school and the period is about to give over. We are running out of time. But as a teacher, you'll be able to handle this 60 seconds. Mr. Datta mentioned that ladies would know it better than men, no bias. Do you, you've been with a girls' boarding school for so many years. In 1 minute, could you tell us if you actually see at the ground level any bias in favor or against a gender when you talk of skill development? Unmute yourself, Nena. Nena, unmute yourself. Yes.
Not vis-a-vis the schools. The schools that I have worked in and interacted with, there is no bias, no limitation. Every opportunity is provided for the girls. I mean, they're doing everything. The bias exists where? In the minds of the parents. And there is this stereotype in society that, IT is for boys, or let's get the girls take multimedia as a skill subject, let them take tourism as a skill subject, AI, why does my daughter need to do AI? So that's the challenge we face with the girls, is to convince the parents and to open their minds. Vis-a-vis schools, I don't think in today's world there's any school that would discriminate. And I'm sure you'll agree with me, girls, sorry boys, but girls are way ahead and way better. Look at the results every year. So given their access to skill development to the girls, they're going to go to the moon and back before we know it. So no gender bias.
Thank you
And
so
ma'am,
much.
just a minute, but we also have a grandma's tailor shop in the same premises.
Great, fantastic. I learned embroidery in school. That's a skill that taught me patience, So the skills you mentioned help in anything, anywhere in your life, they're going to come useful. Not directly, but indirectly in so many ways.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll wind up on that positive note that while we focus on skill development, we also know there is transfer of learning. Doing embroidery does not just only mean actually doing the stitch work. It means transfer of that learning into your life skills in terms of patience, concentration, and so on. Thank you for so much positivity with all the panelists. We are indeed at ScooNews privileged and honored to have had you in this discussion. Indeed, a very meaningful discussion. Over to the hosts for the event. We thank you all for your very, very invigorating and enriching participation. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, ScooNews, for the privilege to me to host this event. Thank you very, very much. God bless us all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic. All your panelists added beautiful content, beautiful value addition was brought in. And I think it's for all attendees and all participants to take a cue from there. But it's extremely important when we're talking about specifically trying to integrate the skill development areas into the curriculum. It has to be from a broader spectrum, but very unique to that particular institution, because there would be different kind of skills available across the board, and what might be geographically more relevant. That's a kind of choice that we, and also a very specific inclination of the students in that particular region. There is a very broad assessment and broad dissemination, something like about 38 different categories of skills, including data science, artificial intelligence, carpentry, stitching, what have you. So certainly some kind of a very intelligent, informed choices can be made for incorporating specifically into your curriculum. You see, it seems to me, just one fun remark, seems to me that skill by itself has to become a habit. It's something that becomes an integrated part. You can integrate in the curriculum, but it has to be integrated as part of your own systems. And when it becomes a habit, it comes to you in a natural manner. And all your kinesthetic abilities or your cerebral processes are completely converging and tuned to that particular habit, and you're able to produce the best possible results in that context. Thank you very much again. So, Dr. Gurmeet, we will sort of meet up again at 1:05, and then we will summarize and thank you very much to all the panelists for a very, very wonderful session. Now, let me just, yes, let me go on to the second session. I think we thought on time at 11:45, and the second session is called How NEP, National Education Policy 2020, promotes the inclusion of skill developments in school education. And we have Dr. Lakshmi Kumar, the founder director, Orchid School, Pune, as the moderator. Dr. Lakshmi, over to you. You have the topic, you have the subject, and fantastic range of panelists to assist you. And I'm sure at the end of it all, we will be in a much better position to understand and appreciate what kind of delivery, what kind of synergy we can create in skill development under the overall umbrella of national education policy. Over to you, Dr. Lakshmi.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vinod, for setting the context. Thank you for the previous panelists and wonderful moderator who, first of all, kept the most important 21st century attitude of keeping in time. And I've been listening to the deliberations, and I think it's kind of a continuum on which we will start. So a very, very warm welcome to my speakers for this afternoon. The focus being how NEP promotes the inclusion of skill development in school education. Do we have them all here? Rajendra Prasad ji, Principal, Smart Modern School, can we have you all put on your video so that we can have you being visible? Dr. Ashya Anjum, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, madam.
Yeah, okay. Dr. Ashya Anjum?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Yeah, and Gurmeet Singh ji?
There, ma'am, I'm there.
Yes, and Yogita Kapil?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, and a very, very warm welcome to this second session for the day, and most significant element of our new roadmap to education. And it couldn't have happened at the time when NEP and the post-pandemic era converging. So we'll have a very brief round of introduction. I would want you to introduce yourself, and let's do the context setting. So we'll go with Rajendra Prasad, sir.
Yes, madam. I am Rajendra Prasad, principal of Smart Modern School, and with 30 years of experience in the school education. I am from Tirupur, Tamil Nadu, near Coimbatore. And I am very happy to be a part of this very insightful session today. Thank you very much, ScooNews and Ravi, Dr. Lakshmi, and the entire program convener, Vinod Malhotra. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Ashya?
Hello, everyone. Good morning and early good afternoon, I must say.
Yes.
Yes. So my name is Arshia Anjum, and I have been into this education field since more than 10 years now. And I must say that education, coming into this field is my choice. Otherwise, I'm actually a doctor by profession. So,
medical doctor. Okay, wonderful combination. Yes.
Yeah. So I can say that this is the choice, and I'm here. I'm here with an intention to serve and make things better for the future generations to come.
Thank you. Can we have Gurmeet, please?
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. This is Gurmeet Singh. I'm the principal of a 4-year-old school, the Millennium School in Batala. Batala is a small industrial town in district of Ghaziabad in Punjab. So I have been a principal at various locations for almost now 20 plus years. Otherwise, my subject is English. So I have been contributing towards education in whatever capacity I could do. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure for me to join this panel, and I'm feeling very humbled. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Yogita?
Yes, ma'am. A very good morning to all the panelists, to dear ma'am and ScooNews. I'm really grateful that you called me in here. This is something that we educationists all are looking forward to. How will we implement skills? How will we actually create children who are skilled, when I say, I also mean life skill. Corona has taught us so many things. So where the life skills were stronger, we were able to pull on with. So I am here in this field for more than 20 years, and luckily my entire family is into this profession. So I don't take it as profession. This is my passion. Talking to children every day, even if one change I'm able to bring in the child, a positive change, I think I've contributed, and it is so satisfying. And this is it. I am lucky to work very closely with CBSE. I'm a CBSE resource person, and I'm privileged to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let me just set the context in which the NEP and the skill development inclusion is, envisioned, so that we kind of put that aside and we know that these are the challenges against which all of us as educators would be exploring the roadmap. We know that the industrial age education policies were designed to deliver the mass education as efficiently as possible. The second important challenge in the backdrop of the NEPs, especially the skill development element, is the educational accountability and standardized testing systems that primarily measure the performance on basic skills of, let's say, reading and math. And sometimes, the other skills are not even really incorporated in that sense. The third and the most significant challenge is also the sheer momentum of decades of teaching practices based on transmitting knowledge to students through direct instruction, the teacher and the taught, or the sage on stage kind of models. The fourth important challenge that we face is also the combined weight of the educational publishing industry that dominates on the textbooks, on the very, very standard curriculum, very, very standard framework. And largely the focus has been on the sales, the marketing pitch. And the most, and the last and not the most, and the most important is the fear among the educational organizations that, if the hard sought improvements in traditional learning outcomes through the various content might undermine, the new focus on skills. And we're still so very score centric that, even in the pandemic time, the 10th and 12th conversations are all about moderating the scores. And, so any new introduction is always weighed against that. I think the previous panel talked about it, the preferences of parents who as children learn through the traditional approaches, and as adults, they have been successful in their own careers. So anything that's kind of moving away from that, they still want it laced with JEE and the NEET and the traditional courses and what would be the board results. So it kind of, we still have to kind of have a very tokenistic approach to the skill introduction. So against this backdrop, let me, I shared with you a scenario. Let me state this for the audience, the scenario that we have been talking about. Let's imagine that you have a child, grandchild, a niece or a nephew, or a child of a friend whom you love and care about deeply, because we are also talking about reformation and transformation when we have to connect with our students. And the child is just starting the preschool or a kindergarten this year. So let's have the first question for the panelists, and we will go with the same order for this question as we had the introduction, and then we can change the order. So what will the world be like 20 or so years from now when your child has left the school and is out in the world? Think about what life was like 20 years ago and all the changes that you have seen happen. So when you were a student, that was, some of us have been 30 years ago, and now we have a kindergarten student who is going to enter the real work life world after, let's say, 20 years. So we're talking about a continuum of 50, 60 years. So if you can kind of give paint a picture for us. Yes, let's start with Rajendra Prasad, sir.
Yes, madam. It's a very interesting question. That is predicting the unpredictable after 20 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So something very unique to answer it. But with the last few decades, what we have been seeing, and with the context of World Economic Forum and also the skills envisaged by the National Education Policy and all the other developments happening across the world, I think we can predict certain things. Let me give just a small example. I think all of us 20 years back, when we look at 1990s, the IT field was booming like anything. And there is a lot of changes that has happened because of the IT revolution that has happened across the world, and in particular, in the last 2 decades in India too. So just if we look at it, Google was not there, Zoom was not there, what we are connected with now. Internet was very, very at the lowest stage in 1999. And in 1991, USSR was collapsed. These were certain important things that had happened in the 1990s, but in the last 20 years. Cell phones, if you look at in 2000, it was just around the statistics by the World Economic Forum. In 2000, it was around 740 millions. But now, half the globe is having it. And even cell phones are more than the human population across the world. So keeping this pace and also context, definitely in future, after 20 years, the fourth industrial revolution will take its peak unimaginably. And technological changes will be definitely at the highest peak by 20 years from now. It will be enormous and unpredictable. We have never thought of Facebook or these kind of things in the last 20 years. We have seen that. We are connected with. Pandemic is a kind of big disruptor for the future innovations and discoveries too. Government jobs will be going drastically down across the world and in India too. It will come down. Already in each and every 5 years, it is coming down. It will further deviate. And private companies will be increasing unimaginably, and private jobs will be at the highest level in the next 20 years. And primary school student, as we have started the point with, from now onwards, and when the child is entering into the society and into the job market, he will be definitely ending up in the jobs that don't exist today at all. We can never imagine those kind of jobs after 20 years. Online learning, we were knowing in the last 20 years because of the IT revolution. Now online schooling is done in the last 1.5 years because of pandemic. We never thought of online schooling. I predict that online universities will be also happening in the next 20 years. We are having online courses, online learning. Already there is a set. Even the Google can become one university in future. So online universities may be today an imagination, but at 20 years, it will be a practical possibility. College degrees, I hope, will be lesser in importance than the job skills. Job skills will be given at the highest importance. as the context set now, life skills or the other skills which are important. So they will be changing because of the decades, because of the companies, because of the industries coming up, and social changes also that is happening. Earlier, I will give one example also in the IT revolution. Before IT revolution, in our culture, customs, and social changes, it was very difficult for ladies to go for night shift jobs. But because of IT revolution, it has gone to the rural level also. Everybody is accepting. So because of one IT revolution, even the customs, cultures has modified themselves for the connecting of jobs. So job skills will be given at the highest importance after 20 years, and upskilling will be continuous and consistent and progressive. So these are the few points which I want to mention in the first few minutes. Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi.
Thank you. Thank you for such a broad outline that, that you have really painted for us, that includes some of the very important paradigm shift that we are expecting in the future. Yes, can we have Dr. Arshia, please?
I first of all would like to thank the ScooNews for giving me this opportunity to express my ideas here and my views. Coming to this, what Mr. Rajendra Prasad said, looking at your past and your present and your future, we have decided now, and we all know that change is constant and it's inevitable. The faster you adopt and adapt, the sooner we will be imbibed into the cycle, or else we will just be left behind. Right. And taking this forward, it is something like the sky is the limit in true sense for us. What we had never even imagined that was was impossible a few days ago or few years ago when we were students has just come on our fingertips. And as we move forward and look into that future, it's inevitable that maybe the colleges and the universities and the degrees will be completely out. And the revolution has already begun, and it's picked up the pace. We have so many organizations who talk about no certification is required, no degrees are required. They're more focusing on the transferable skills that are most commonly referred to as soft skills. Right? If you just look into, the fact that universities and employers, they consider these transferable skills to be the largest skill gap, that they are seeing globally all over. And if I have to just bring in a few statistics or a few percentages in the form of percentage, if I have to say, it can be said like 1 in 6 employers have difficulty finding candidates with the skills that they require. 65% of children of age 12 now in 2015, just passed by 5 years ago, will do jobs that didn't even exist. Maybe when they reach, that is our own children, the question that you put forward, they will be getting into jobs which don't even exist now. And we are actually preparing them for the unseen. And, it is like 54% of the companies, they say that skill shortages will impact your ability to serve the community. And every 1 in 3 of the skills that they are asking in the job posting is a soft skill. Now, these soft skills are those transferable skills which are there already in the NEP, which are enlisted, and it is there like a great combination. And we have taken that right step at the right time, I can say, looking at what we have experienced and what we are doing now, and looking into the future. And it's also said that 87% of the university professors do not think students have the research skill needed, for that degree level that they study. So all these things are predicted for the future. And we ourselves are an example of what we have gone through and come to this stage. Like I said initially, that the sooner we adapt and adopt, the better it will be for us to imbibe, to get imbibed and to get into the cycle. Otherwise, we will be left behind. And I'm sure all of us are aware and all of us endorse that AI, that MR and VR and AR, there are so many I's and R's everywhere that are just rising and touching everyone's lives, right? So creative imagination and out-of-box thinking is what we are focusing on. A lot of critical thinking, problem solving, and design thinking and all that. And to cut all this thing short, I would see that our children should be taught how to think and not what to think. And education is there. Education is there. It is more important, but skills are the most important things that we are realizing maybe as we're going into the future. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think
input.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Arshia. And I think what you had said, something very, very valuable, I think that's kind of the overriding phenomenon is going to be to prepare for the unseen. And I think right now, the pandemic too has given us a reality check on how prepared that we have been for this extraordinary unseen scenario. Gurmeet, would you like to elaborate on your view on the future and the past?
Of course, possibly my panelists.
Your volume, if you can just slightly increase it. I don't know if it's only me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, but others, can you all hear him very well? Yes? Yeah, go ahead.
Everybody might feel that there is some overlapping, but I am little worried about what is going to happen from 20 years from now. I find there is a lot of conflict. One side that there is a lot of emphasis on skilled education, which means vocationalization also at the same time, life skills as well. But at the same time, we have been fed with this idea and the thought that certain jobs would be obsolete maybe after 20 years. So I am always in a conflict. So what do I train my children for? So do I train them to be an architect when somebody says that architects would not be required in that great number? Somebody says doctors are not required in that great number. So what should we do? Should we request the governments to open more medical colleges, or should we ask them to start closing some of the colleges? So idea is, what I feel is that some of us, or rather all of us, have already become slaves to technology. See, without the network, we will not be able to see one another right now. So after 20 years, when there is more advancement in technology or internet connectivity, so what I'm worried about is, will there be any human connections then? Or will people only be talking about, success and things that really matter? Will there be anything nonsensical in future? People say that we, become creative when we do certain nonsensical or absurd things, and that creativity really, that fountain really erupts. So when people are going to be so brief and talking about only subtle things, so will there be any room for subtlety in our lives? Or we're all going to be really exactly, because they say that companies which are promoting the artificial intelligence, so they say that one machine or one robot possibly will be able to do more work than a human being. So what I'm worried about is that it's going to be a question of survival. So my children after 20 years would possibly be unemployed. So they will have very few jobs to take care of, even though I ask them to learn entrepreneurial skills. So will there be any enterprise left for them? Because everything possibly maybe from 50 years from now, we'll have more machines around us than human beings. So the only question that again comes up to my mind is, so shall I then continue training my children only on those problem solving, creative thinking, leadership skills, which we were already doing, because CBSE through CC had already introduced this life skills, and before that also. So I am a little worried what our children will be doing after 20 to 30 years. Possibly there will be no room for emotions. There'll be no room for passions. So we will always be interacting with the machines or through the machines. Will there be any room for art? Will there be any room for dance? Will there be any coaches available to have that human touch or not? Thank you very much.
Wow. I think you raised one of the most pertinent questions, and the set of worries that I think we all must share and comprehend and contextualize while we are planning what we call this inclusion of the skill development in the curriculum. And I think yeah, I can kind of see the parallel development of the waning context of human connections, while overarching replacement by the robots and the artificial intelligence. And imagine if universities are vanishing, if courses are vanishing, most of it is going to be online. The genuine concern of that, then where are the human connect and where are the human beings? So we'll definitely come to this very, very important the sensorial element of education. And I think when you raise a question of no room for connections, or no room or worry about what will happen to the art and the other expressions that are extremely humanistic or human centered. So I think we will definitely incorporate this also. So yes, can I have Yogita come on board with her views on the first question?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Panelists are really speaking their hearts out and all relevant in today's time and in the coming time. Gurmeet sir, your concern is also apt. And I think in NEP, some of it has already been taken care of. So, ma'am, as you said, when we, like 20 years ago, what we were doing, more than 20 years. So this was when I was a young teacher. I was very enthusiastic to do things, and I thought I can touch the sky. And so what I did was, technology was setting in, it was in that time. So as to write to the President of India, I would always email every now and then. So I'd learned writing emails that time, and I was writing to the President of India, sir, I'm a young teacher and I want to meet you. And I was expecting Dr. Kalam to answer me. And I always requested him, sir, I want to bring my children to you, and I want you to meet them, guide them, bless them. And I don't know which email ID I was sending it to, and I'm sure it never reached the president. But this trend that I had set, this went viral with my colleagues, with my students, and we really started getting interest into technology. Technology was that time very new to us, and we were not very comfortable with technology. Of course, now things are very different, and because of this and that information of technology that we had, we were able to survive now. When CCE came up, I still believe CCE was very good. It's just that the implementation was not to the core. So what I now see in NEP is the skill. Now, next 20 years, when I foresee, last 20 years were happening, and I'm really lucky, and we all are lucky to see the changes happening. For so many years, nothing was happening in the field of education. Now, so many changes, positive changes are coming up. Working with CBSE, I feel the coming generation is very lucky. And I'm really hopeful that positive changes are coming up. We all are living in VUCA world. The VUCA world is itself a set of confusions. What we are doing today may not be fit or suitable for tomorrow. So what should we do? We all are sitting here because we really don't know what will happen after 20 years. The concern that all the panelists have shown, I agree completely. I also want to add in here the soft skills that Dr. Arsha also spoke about. This will help us and our children to pick up new professions, to adjust in the new scenarios that will come up, the scenarios that we even are not aware of. So we are preparing a base. We cannot prepare children exactly for what it is going to be like. Years back, I remember when I was a class 12 student, cracking IIT was a very, 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 very tough thing. Almost impossible for me. I always thought I'll never be able to do that. Right? But today, there are so many institutes, there are so many teachers, my own physics teacher, my own maths teacher, they're able to suggest children exactly what to practice, how to practice, and they are showing good results, excellent results. Me as a principal, I never cracked IIT. But I am with my good faculty, I am able to, we all together are able to make children crack IIT. Now this is set and we've been able to crack through. Few fields that were impossible in the past, we are able to crack through them today. So many NTSC students coming up. Even if the syllabus is vast, even if it is difficult, even if it is happening in stages, we are able to do that. Support our children cracking NTS and all. Now what next? We don't know. Now the need of the hour is to make children learn how to learn. So self-learning is very important in the time, the existing time. Corona is an integral part of VUCA world. I'm not really sure when is it going to disappear. No one is sure, no one knows. We all want to get rid of Corona, but we really don't know when, how. Will it be in the same form? Whatever same form we see, we are able to find vaccination. But then there is another strain. Same way in this world, in this VUCA world, world of changes, the jobs that will appear after 20 years, we all don't know. We don't know. So what we are preparing? We are preparing our children to be flexible, to be good communicators, to be debaters, to be critical thinkers. When we talk of dimensions of learning, what is the topmost level we take our children to? Critical thinkers and decision makers. Decision making is very easy when there are no options. But when the options are very close, that time what good decision the child takes, there we need to, for that we need to prepare our children. So I think technology will always remain there and will have a major share of the jobs in future. But I'm sure art will also grow. I'm sure the music will also grow. And I'm sure, I'm hopeful that social sciences, they also grow. So co-living with the fellows is very important. In social science, we call it coexistence. So science, technology, humanities, all will coexist beautifully. And we need to prepare children only to face the something that we cannot all see through these skills. That's what I think, Lakshmi ma'am.
Beautiful, beautiful. Preparing for the unseen or preparing for the unknown. And you are very wonderfully enumerated the self-learning as the center of it all, that student as an agency, student as a self-driving force for the newer context. I'm also seeing there are this, just to summarize, the first very wonderful elaboration of like a timeline that you have put forth. The four powerful forces are converging, and it's probably leading us to a new ways of learning for life in the 21st century. The knowledge work, whether it's in the form of a subject or in the form of a skill set. And the second one that all of you in some form or the other had elaborated on, the thinking tools. And of course, everything is in the backdrop of the digital lifestyle, from the one channel DD or a no television time to DD television to we have now 243 channels streaming in our living room, or from a no email to the kind of digital technology. And Dr. Arshia talked about all the I's and R's. So we're talking about the digital lifestyle. And the fourth important powerful force is the learning research. So against this four powerful forces of 21st century learning. My second question is, I'm kind of slightly modifying the one, saying that if you were to identify between all four of you, the top 3 skills that are going to be relevant and teachable, because the next question is very, very connected to that. A lot of things are very ideologically very profound, but how are we going to integrate it in the curriculum? Because NEP talks about inclusion for the development and not as some kind of an ideological and a principle-based framework. So my second question is, if you were to identify top 3 or 4 skills that your child needs to learn in order to be integrating in the world that's 20 years from now, that you all have very, very, very creatively imagined, what would be that? Let's start with Gurmeet.
I find that means socially adaptable. If a child has a good level of social quotient, like I would say, if a child after 20 years would be able to get a very high level job, using his or her intellect and intelligence and practice, but then will the child remain relevant? Will the child be able to remain adaptable and useful to the organization? So social quotient, one. Number 2 is, that decision making. It has to be so instant. Incidentally, it has to be so instant, because to decide upon any decision, the person would have the assistance of so many machines.
Absolutely.
So, decision making will be something that the child needs to be trained in. And third, of course, is the empathy, which I always keep at the topmost. Empathy is really, really required, because I feel that there would not be any scope for emotional connect between or amongst the people. So I
think we lost you, Gurmeet.
Yeah, audible. It is not audible.
Yeah. No, I think he's made a very, very relevant point, especially of the instant decision making. And I think we all educators recognize that, last year, March, one fine day, we all woke up to this pandemic news. And by the time we processed it, there was lockdown. By the time we thought the lockdown would be over, then it was a Kadak lockdown. And we were constantly expected to make decisions and give a crisis response that was that instant. Yogita, would you go next for your 3 top skills, or 3 or 4 skills that you think that would be relevant?
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, I think social skills are very important. We are India, and we have so many variety of people living in here. So social skills are very, very important. I think the first skill that I would like my child or my students to have are social skills. They should be able to accommodate the differences. They should be able to agree to disagreements peacefully. So this is my first, always, I want my students to be socially patient. So this is first thing. Second, ma'am, when we talk about profession, personal life, education, going to this stream, going to other stream, here the decision making is very, very important. So when they have to choose for their life, whether they want these subjects, whether they want this job, whether they want to stay in this state or the other state. So decision making is very relevant in today's world and even in the times to come. So these 2 things. And third skill that I would put above all is communication skill. So a child who's able to communicate very well will definitely stand above a child who is the best scorer, say 99% marks or 100% marks, but is not able to speak well and is not able to communicate well. So I think a child who scored 70%, 80%, I'm really good with that child if he is able to communicate well. There is no need to have to run after 99% or 100%. So the child should be able to live also the life, the precious life that we all have received. So I think communication skill is very important. So these three, ma'am, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. It's quite interesting. Gurmeet, you are back. We just lost you for a second, I guess. But I did take upon your point of the instant decision making. And it's interesting that both of you have spoken about the social adaptability or the social connect and ability to get along and to agree to disagree and this decision making. Interestingly, we will come to the next one later, the decision making in the context of our childhood, where most of the decisions are already made by the significant adults. The government has made the decision, the education system has made the decision, the schools have made the decision of including what to wear and when to learn what and how much to learn, and and the parents have decided even till today, the decision of what kind of career to move on to, whom do you marry, and when do you have a child. So how, the biggest challenge is going to be also how are we going to infuse these skills? But we'll come to that later. Can we have Mr. Rajendra Prasad to respond to these 3 top skills that he think are very relevant?
Yes, madam. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, coming to the point, as you have mentioned about the 3 skills, what I wish to say is adaptability first. If there is no adaptability, it is very difficult to cope up with. We are adapted to the last 20 years. We have seen all these technological advantages we are adapted to. So adaptability is very, very important thing. And it is a part of the basic skills or the foundation skills of any school education. It is unavoidable and inevitable. So it's a part of that one. But how, where, and when, and the degree of variation of this adaptability makes the set, who will be going ahead or not. We have been with the exam-based learning. We are the result of exam-based learning only. We have been into so many examinations. Now also it is going on, as Yogita Madam and Gurmeet and Asha mentioned about. Examinations are a part of the student life now. Day 1, day out, from the childhood, from the 4th or 5th class onwards, exams are unknowingly incepted into the brain of the children. You have examination, examination, examination. So this adaptability is very, very important thing. Social adaptability, cultural adaptability, job adaptability, and n number we can take up. Teamwork. In the last 20 years, because of the different revolutions, and I can give a few examples also, some of the banks, particularly HSBC and also even Standard Chartered Account Bank, recently, maybe a few years back, they did not select the people who have got 90% marks. They have asked your participation in your childhood, show me your reports, whether you have participated in the games, sports, other participations. What are they? Where did you participate? Did you fail? Where did you fail and when did you fail? How did you cope up? If you are not able to cope up, you are not fit for the job. That is how they have taken, whether the candidate is adaptable to the new situation or not. So teamwork is one of the skill that I wish in the coming years, in the next decade, should be more emphasized upon. Entrepreneurship. Let me give one example again. Climate change. I think 25 years back, climate change word, I think I did not hear about. But in the last 20 years, climate change is very, very frequently visible and audible. Only because of climate change, there are n number of companies, n number of jobs, n number of technologies. SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Based on this UN report, there are companies around, there are skills around, there are other adaptability skills also which are coming across just only because of SDGs. 15 years back, SDGs were not shown in the school. Now we are a part of that. We are bringing the SDGs into the school education. We are giving that kind of learning for the children also. So in future, when they are going to the society, wherever it is possible, they may adapt to the situation. As rightly mentioned by Yogita Madam and Gurmeet, we have to create a base for the children to adapt to the future, how it will be, what it will be. The base is not stronger, they will fail. So the base of these kind of things, maybe creativity or critical thinking or decision making. I give another example, creativity. This one.
Excuse me, Mr. Prasad, let me just come in. I think we're running out of time because your time is, Dr. Lakshmi, your time is till 2025.
25, yeah, okay.
Yeah. We are on 12:29 now. So I would suggest that if you could wind it up in the next 1 minute, then
yes.
We move.
Yeah. I think if we can rush it through with Mr. Prasad, and then we have Dr. Arshia giving the 3 important skills. Yes.
I will conclude in 1 minute, madam.
Yeah.
I will conclude. So what I wish to say that after 20 years, definitely the skill education will be the predominant and also very important thing. As mentioned by the NEP 2020, let all of us, all the educators, teachers, children, parents, we should take it forward. And these skills should be very, very neatly and keenly introduced into the school education. Exams has been a habit of our school education. Now let us bring, in the previous session also I have heard about data. So arts, games, sports, and so on. We can bring all these kind of skills into the school education so that in future, how the world will be, we do not know. And they should be ready for that kind of cake of jobs, a cake of changes, which may happen, which is unpredictable now. I wish that all of them be successful in this journey of skill-based education. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you. Dr. Arshia, your 3 skills top list.
In the best interest of time, I would just try to keep it as crisp and as short as possible, maybe. The 3 major skill sets that I would see that are important would be under the 3 broad categories. That is cognitive skills, which are the core skills that your brain uses to think, learn, and reason, that is used to carry out any task. That includes all the critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, innovation, analysis, all these things. The list is endless over there. Then the second bigger chunk I would recommend and I'd stand for is the intrapersonal skills. And this is the emotional intelligence, the ability to know, to understand, to manage your own emotions and learning. And this can be like the intellectual openness, the self-evaluation and positive care, the ethics and the conscience, I'm not getting the word right here, integrity, I can put it across that way, and perseverance. And the third important category would be the interpersonal skills. And this is the life skills that we use every day to communicate and interact with other people, both individually as well as in groups. And this will take care of all the teamwork and the collaboration. So basically, these are 3 broad categories under which I think all the skills that we require to address, change, adapt to the VUCA world. Maybe a help for us to enable our students in a sense, like empower them with all these things.
Thank you. And I can see that all 4 panelists have more or less complemented each other's choices of skills. And I think the roadmap of what, while it is clear, how will also be, kind of made clear to us as we go along. And probably as we all have talked about, it is not a 1 year, 1 time or a 1 subject agenda, but it has to be all pervading the curriculum. So thank you so much, my dear panelists, for this wonderful listing, wonderful framework and the backdrop against which all these skills that are prioritized and that we need to look at for future. Thank you. Thank you so much, ScooNews, for this great opportunity for all of us to share with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi, and your wonderful team. I think some of you, in fact, all of you highlighted some very significant features. And it's a combination of being upbeat, optimistic about the future, and also at the same time issuing certain statutory warnings. So we've got to be clear, very clear, how the 20 years down the line is going to unfold. And some very significant kind of indicators is to make sure that the coming generation does not become irrelevant. You see, the onslaught of digital technology or technological revolution must make sure that. But let me just sort of go to the third one with a note of strong optimism that civilizational adaptability is a part of the evolutionary process. So I don't think we need to really worry so much about Mr. Rajendra Prasad because over the years, if you look at the last about 3,000, 4,000 years, human beings have got remarkable capacity to adapt to the changes. And I think if we set the right agenda for our children, adaptation, as I say, is subsumed as a part of the evolutionary process. And if we get the right kind of direction and give them that kind of facilitation process, we are on the right track. Now, thank you very much. The second panel,
Thank you.
And your wonderful panelists. And of course, we'll expect you to be here and join us at 1:05 for a final summarizing sessions, etc. Now, the third and the last session has been preceded by a very, very enlightening discussion. So I'm sure this session also would throw wonderful lights on the direction. But I'm little amused and little foxed also at the title of this last session, which is why must we focus on skill-based education? पिछले 2 घंटे से हम लोग ये बात कर रहे हैं. So the question is begs for itself. So it's interesting. I don't know why ScooNews probably must have had some kind of interesting objective behind framing this question. But I think it will probably bring about some kind of a finality into our thought process. Why should we have skill-based education? I think you got adequate amount of material which has been preceded before this for you to take the cue and move forward. So we have Dr. Vidukesh Vimal, Principal, the Assam Valley School, as a moderator for this session. Dr. Vidukesh Vimal, floor is open for you and your panelists.
I just need to add, hi Vidukesh, hi everyone.
Hi Ravi, good to see you.
Likewise, Ajay and
hi.
Ajay, could you just try to flip your phone so that we can kind of have you sort of full on the screen. So just flip your phone.
Okay?
And Mr. Neela, I mean, if you could do the same, yeah, I mean that's wonderful, Ajay.
Is that okay?
Perfect.
Actually, I'm on the iPad, so probably it will come this way. If I do it horizontal, it will not look too good.
If you actually switch on that particular feature on your iPad, I mean, where if you flip your iPad, I mean, we can actually see you full screen. If that's not possible, then let's just
It's not possible.
Yeah, so over to you, Vidukesh.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you very much, Mr. Malhotra. In fact, it's very enlightening to listen to the panelists, and you are absolutely right. I guess the question which the ScooNews team has put in, why skill education, I think it's nothing but the timing, because we are flowing and we are at the end of our kind of session, and that's why they may have thought of it. But I think it's very interesting, if you look at in the context that, and because pandemic is the given context in which this question has been put into us, and the way we look at the pandemic, the way migration happened, the way people moved, the way kind of people lost their job, I think it's very interesting notion which comes in front of us, the validity of what we are learning, and the kind of things which is happening in the schools, and how that particular learning setup is helping all of us to cope up with our time, to ensure that we remain relevant in our time. So let me begin by asking the same question. I know, and that's why it's very interesting that we learn, we unlearn, and we relearn certain things after kind of post-pandemic, or say during this pandemic time. So let me begin by say asking, and say let's ask Mr. Singh of Ajay, my ex-colleague. Let's begin from Ajay only. Okay, Ajay, if I may ask you, what is your take on say this whole process of say learning, unlearning, and relearning post-pandemic?
Great, wonderful, Vidukesh, wonderful, and thank you, Ravi, for this wonderful opportunity for discussing something very relevant. So if I look at the concept what Vidukesh has raised as to why, Now, the why is linked with, if we look at the entire education system, which has been prevalent. So we have had a disconnect, to be very honest, with the industry. And the industry is where, you look at futuristically as to where our kids will end up. So we have been technically based in the content-based era, and the industry has moved ahead from knowledge-based to data-based. So this gap is what is the answer to that why. Number one. Number two, because of this, the second most important thing is when we are looking at unlearning now. The first was why, and now the unlearning part. We'll have to look at the entire 3 dimensions of education, meaning the curriculum, the assessment, and the transaction. So all this will need to really go ahead in a holistic way and turn 360 degree to be time relevant. If not, then we'll not be doing justice to our to our learners as well as to our educators. So the unlearning comes here. The relearning is the skilling which we have now managed in the COVID times, as well as focusing on the context. And as CBSE is also progressing ahead with experiential learning. And I would add from the IB world where I have taught, thankfully, bringing in certain topics which are criterion based. So why? What was happening? Then the unlearning part, we need to unlearn mentally, and it's very difficult and challenging for teachers actually, to come out of that habit. So we need to break that, unlearn it, because we need to acknowledge the changing times. We are dealing with net generation. They already have the entire information. We are not giving them information now. We are not the gatekeepers of the information. We need to change that as a mindset and become facilitators. So when we look at this question as a final, net generation dealing, the net generation is fast, is impatient, is on the system. They're already digital natives. We are digital, not natives. In fact, when we need to appreciate what they have as a skill. And with that, we need to connect ourselves as a teacher and as an educator. So why not focus on using this strength, modifying it with our relearning and upskilling, and present the data which actually excites them. So how does a child get excited? Not with the content which he already has. He will get excited if we can allow him to use what information he has along with our questioning, which asks him to do research, which asks him or her to go deep into it and come out with their own solutions. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. And in the interest of time, because so that we can make it a conversation, I'll request everyone to keep it to 2 to 3 minutes so that we can come back again and again and add more dimensions. So if I may ask at this point, because Ajay raised a very interesting question that about the industries and the needs of the industry change. And that's why it's very interesting to look at the contextual part of our education and the content, because the modern education system and the modern whole need was to prepare at that time workforce for factories. And after the industrial revolution, fine. And that's why the whole majority thing was, where you are going to do the written work, you're going to do a certain kind of work. Now the needs have changed. And now my question to Ma'am Archana is, how, because Ajay raised a very interesting question that it will be very difficult for teachers to unlearn. If I may ask you that on this part, how do you think that teachers will be kind of coping up with the whole unlearning process to bring skills into the forte or in the center of education and the center of discussion?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Dr. Vidukesh, for this question. In fact, it is quite close to my heart because we've been, all panelists have been talking about skilling students and skilling the next generation. But I think one of the most important aspects of this entire thing is skilling ourselves. We are the ones who need more skilling, probably at this stage at least, so that we can skill the students. So this is a very, very relevant question, and it is not as simple as teaching something to somebody. It's not just about learning. It is more about unlearning, because we are already at that age where we think that we have learned everything, we know everything, and we just need to now transmit it to our students. We have a fixed mindset, and we have worked on certain parameters, on certain aspects of learning. And it is very difficult to move out of that. A very simple example is when we are teaching in the class. Teachers who've been teaching for the last 20, 30 years, if you ask them to slightly change their way of teaching or to add on to something or add on to an experiential way of teaching, it takes a little while for them to understand what has to be done, because they get upset because the class is noisy then. The class is restless. The class is, they're moving around, they're talking, but that is where the learning is happening. That is the essence of learning. In that chaos comes clarity. But we get a little upset that ma'am, they will make noise if I ask them to do this. So this is just one example, but these kind of a lot of mindsets need to be changed. And this can only happen when we have regular workshops, not once a month or something, but regular brainstorming and workshops among small groups, like department groups or across department, vertical departments. We sit together and actually assess each other and point out the minor things that we tend to keep doing. We keep telling students, be quiet, don't make noise. Now, you cannot tell children, even you and I can't sit quietly for 40 minutes. We can't do it. So why not make it into a different thing? Okay, if you want to speak, tell me about this. If you want to walk up to your friend, okay, go and ask him this. So the same little things, a part of experiential learning should be added as a curriculum as you are teaching. Secondly, the teachers on their own need to be self-learners if they wish to keep in step with the present students. As Mr. Ajay said, they are fast, they know the technology. So it's not about knowing the technology, it's more about how we utilize that technology to make it interesting for them, because we have to teach the way they want to learn and they want to use the technology and learn. So we need to just be a little smarter in understanding that technology and taking it further. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. In fact, this is again very interesting thing. We need to upskill ourselves before we kind of work with skills and work with our students. But whenever we talk about skill development, whenever we talk about these skills, major time what happens, we only talk about technology. We only talk about kind of the future things. But I personally feel we are at such a juncture that where obviously there's the future, but then the past as well. The past in which there's so much knowledge was there. If I may ask Ma'am Priyanka on this, that how do you think, and this is exactly been discussed in NAP as well, how to connect the present India with the past Bharat, if I may say, so that we can create a modern Bharat, which is kind of amalgamation of the technology and the skills and the things which we had. But how do you think that we can bring this into our curriculum and this into our school system?
Thank you, Dr. Vimal, and good afternoon, everyone. It's really nice to be meeting some very good old friends. Thank you, ScooNews, for bringing this platform and lovely discussion on board. Very relevant till now. We've been speaking of skills and the way we want to inculcate them in the curriculum. And very valid, Dr. Vimal, that we have identified that where do we need to reinforce the generation. Now, the first thing I want to say that education is important, but then skills are necessary, right? What we need to be concentrating now is not just creating good employees, we also need to be creating good employers. So a lot of initiative enterprise has to now come in, and knowledge in the background, knowledge of the past, the Bharat that we've been talking about is hugely value-based, skill-based. The first institutions that we know about, the Gurukuls, were the ones who exercised and put in place the entire concept of experiential learning by doing, leveling of the caste system, bringing in inclusivity where everybody would go to the Gurukul, do every kind of work that was required and learn the nuances of empathy, resilience, the values of character. So the education became a part where the teachers understood that it was important that children who sit in the class understand the content in the right context. So that's very important. We're teaching them of, I'll just share a little example here. We're teaching them of revolt. We're teaching them of wars of independence. We teach them of wars of different kinds. How do we even gauge that the children are taking information in the right context? So it's very important that we connect the past, present, and the future. And the first important thing I feel that we need to do is a gap analysis. First, let's identify in the first place where the gaps are. Where have we left the past somewhere behind? And we need to now understand. See, we cannot be changing content in the books overnight. They will take time. So what is with us? What do we need to add? And how do we bring it in smoothly so that the teachers understand it, the children understand it, the parents understand it, and it becomes valuable to the society as a whole? So what I feel personally is that there has to be an integration, and we're doing that beautifully where we've brought in the art integration. This is a great opportunity for us to use art integration methods to bring in the past into the present context. Number two, research. So if you're teaching something in the present context, let's bring in the research of the past in context, in content right now, so that children go back, learn, bring it in. And of course, it has to be mentored, facilitated, and all of that to help children understand how to curate information. We all know, yes, you rightly said technology, and I agree with Archana ma'am that it's not only about technology, it's about utilizing technology and helping children to understand where to draw a line. We are the ones who were 2 years back talking of no mobile phones, no tablets, no computers, screen time, no. And today we will smile calmly when the parent wants to come and say, ma'am, the screen time has gone up by so much. So you see, what I want to say is that change is the only permanence in today's world. Skill, yes, but skill what? Telling children how to go about the content is important. And I think connecting through different projects, research programs, whether they are facilitated in full or they are independent, and of course, incorporating it into the plans, the lesson plans, the teaching pedagogy that we have, we will have to do it. And there I connected back to the point that you just mentioned. We need to tune and train the teachers to do it, because they are the ones who are going to conduct it in the curriculum.
Thank you very much. In fact, look, before I go to Sunila ma'am, to take this our discussion a little further, it's very interesting to understand. Look, the schools in which we all are working, and we have to accept this, that we are going to create more employers. Then obviously, then that way, those who are going to work under someone, because we belong to a certain kind of school, and that's why I personally feel that in our schools, in our setup, if we somehow kind of bring more, say, this taste for certain things, and when I talk about taste for art, taste for theater, taste for kind of certain kind of traditional art form, and that kind of appreciation. So I know once we start working on this part, I personally feel that then these people, they will kind of protected, they will be given that kind of support, because that's very important. So how, if I may ask Sunila ma'am on this part, what are the provisions in your school? What you do to ensure that your kids have this kind of, say, exposure to have this developing this appreciation for artisans, appreciation for these individuals, those who are working in and around us, and kind of stuff, so that when our kids, they move out, because they're not necessarily that they are going to work like that, but if they move out, they have this appreciation for such people, and then they are making an impact and kind of making a positive enforcement in the society.
Thank you so much, Vimalji, and it's a pleasure being on this platform. Well, just before logging and linking here, we attended a very important YouTube session with the new Minister for Education, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan. And they are bringing out a Young Innovators program. It was launched today along with design thinking. And they are going to train 50 teachers pan-India intensively for 72 hours under 5 modules. So once these 50 teachers are trained, it will percolate down to every teacher in the schooling system, that how can we retrain, upskill our teachers to grapple with this paradigm shift that is happening. And if you see the CBSE portal, it has got 3 important pillars now: academic, training, and skill education. So you can see how much importance is given to skill education as much as it is given for academic and for training. And all this thing has even this webinar that we have today is so, I think it's a date, just opportune date, because just yesterday we celebrated the World Youth Skill Day. And therefore we had this launch also by the ministry. Now, where schools are concerned, it is obvious now that we have to catch them young. And therefore skilling and schooling have to be in tandem. And for this, probably these two ministries also now are going to work in tandem, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Skill Development. And therefore now the CBSE, which is our educational body, is has introduced 37 skill subjects in our schools. And if we take, there are going to be about 20 lakh children who pass out from class 12 every year. They are full of knowledge. They have done well in their board exams. But after 10 years, are they going to be assets to the employment market or not? Because skilling was never a part of our complete academic or assessment criteria. And if we have to see where our country goes, if we have to see we are going to be a 5 trillion economy, we are going to in the next 15 years have the youngest workforce. But if this workforce is not employable, is not skilled, then what are we going to do? Unfortunately, the mindsets also have to change, because till now we always thought of skills as hunar, which only the ITIs did it. It was only maybe labor oriented or technical oriented. But now the gamut of subjects that are given, which is all for the sunrise employment sector, like travel tourism, hospitality, dietetics, nutrition, artificial intelligence is coming in class 8, financial literacy and management. Naturally, the teachers also have to unlearn and relearn. And a lot of hand-holding also is being done. A very beautiful curriculum has been chalked out. There are going to be a lot of professional development programs for them so that they can convey the same thing to the children. And in 10 years, 15 years time, we will be able to have children who are academically sound and at the same time robustly skilled, because we need to balance both these things in our schooling systems at the moment.
Thank you very much. So look, we at present, we talk in terms of theories, but now for the say better understanding of the community and the audience, I'll request all the principals to let's make it a little more contextual. Fine, because many times what happens, our debates remain in a kind of theory level, and and we don't see the context part of that, how we are doing it, because there are so many schools that are doing so many good work. And that's why my next question is for all, and the same question, that what are the provisions, how you engage with your local community, and what are the how you ensure that our students, and obviously the ways may be different these days, maybe at present is limited during the pandemic, but there must be a system in your institutions where you are engaging with your local community, where there are artisans, there are kind of local workers, vocational people, and those who are running and doing different kind of work, and kind of picking there and not only helping them understanding their lifestyle, understanding their skills, and creating certain kind of market for them, certain kind of working and connecting them with the nearest possible market. All kind of work, all kind of great work happens in different schools. So my question to Ma'am Archana first, ma'am, what kind of provisions are there in your school to engage with the local community?
Thank you, Dr. Vidukesh. We have a few activities like Jaipur. We are based in Jaipur, so it is famous for blue pottery. So we do take our students, they learn blue pottery, and what we have done is when we celebrated our 75th anniversary 2 years back, we asked the girls to create something new. So blue pottery, there are certain motifs, there are certain designs, and it is generally blue in color. But what we took it a step further so that they learn a bit of creativity, they apply that creativity. So we ask them to not just go for the traditional motifs, but draw and make something relevant to the 75th anniversary. So they created, they made plates which had Rajmata's figure on it, a car that used to always arrive in the school building, and a lot of new things were added, which we were so surprised, and that was done on plates, vases, and many other things. So our point was, the whole purpose was not just learning a skill, connecting with the artisans, but taking it to a level of introducing something new. So they have also introduced new colors. It is no longer just blue. I mean, green is in and many other colors are being added. So they were experimenting with a lot of new things. And this is what we feel they need to do. And similarly, we've done other activities like, again, with the local craftsmen and all, the tie and dye that we used to do in our school. So all that has been, the other thing was that we just didn't want it as a hobby or just as a craft which has to be taught, but it had to be structured better so that we map the learning process and it is goal oriented so that we create something new and different. So the purpose was not just learning, but taking it to its logical conclusion by taking it to a next level or adding on to the thing. And also then learning about the craftsmen and how they live and how they procure the materials required and how the processes, the entire process is executed by them.
Thank
so
you.
This is what one of the things we've done.
Thank you. Dr. Mehta, same question for you. What are your provisions and engagement? How you engage with the local community?
So apart from what ma'am has mentioned, yes, we have, connections with the craftsmen around, and we do certain clubs and certain programs. I'll just read out a couple of them. The first thing that we do is the Anubhav series. And in the Anubhav series, what we do is we connect children to the people who belong to these professions. So we invite people from different skill sets and we ask them to come and speak to our children. They display their work. Even online, I guess this was possible. So it was a great experiment wherein we brought in people, they would talk. We had this one seminar with a filmmaking institute wherein the young boys and girls, the young aspiring directors could come and speak to the children, and they talked about photography, cinematography, and all that. So that's one series that we do, and we call people from different communities and different areas. The second thing that we do is the Manthan series, which is an interview series where our children go out and they try and find out people around them who can be interviewed and who could be talked to. So they do their little research work and find out and get back that kind of information to them. The purpose of doing this is first, get connected to the community, find out people, and it only adds on to our knowledge base. And children come back super excited to tell us who all they have, they've spoken to and who all they can connect to. For a little example, one of our kids, went on and spoke to Arjun Vajpayee. We never knew that Arjun Vajpayee was near Noida, and we could, kind of speak to him and talk to him, and he spoke to children about mountaineering and all. So that was another thing, that this is another series. The third thing that we've done is we brought in internship clubs right from class 6. We do AI, we do all other things, financial literacy and all, in the senior sections. But with the skill clubs, we've brought these internship clubs right from class 6, wherein we tell them, we give them the outline, and children start doing small little things and they get their internship certificates from the school. So it is only a way to encourage a child to be on the job, whatever small it could be. It could be learning to repair a chair. It could be learning to do a hydroponic garden at home. It could be learning to stitch. It could be learning to create something. So whatever, you have to have these 3 credits and an internship certificate, which gets added to their work experience and grading, and the grading part, so that it becomes a little formal. You see, anything done for just fun may not keep the child motivated. So there's a little formal assessment brought in a way that it's not, we don't gauge them on performance, we only gauge them on completion of the certificate.
Thank you.
So that is
thank you. In the interest, because I'm mindful of time as well, obviously we'll get 2-3 extra minutes, but still, let's go to Ajay. Ajay, quickly, 1 minute. How you're connecting with or engaging with the community? Yeah.
Well, to be very honest, by the time I joined PPS, it was all lockdown, Corona. But eventually we found out what was prevalent earlier is, one, we engage with our prison mates in Nabha jail, which is a very prominent place. So our children are happily engaged, working with the jailmates to enlighten them. So they are becoming educators. Number two is they have picked up children from the underprivileged classes, and they hold classes for technology and communication. So this two ideas is what I have seen happening on the ground level. And third one is they're doing that the dyeing and everything. And fourth is we have linked up with the army base, because a lot of our kids, interested in the army. So they are looking at adventure as a learning as well as a profession. So this four aspects is where we are connected with the community locally.
Great. Sunila ma'am.
Luckily, in all our subject areas, we have a big chunk called as internal assessment. And this internal assessment, we ask the children to create portfolios where they have done their internships with certain industry tie-ups. We have a data bank of parents who are supportive parents. They give us a data bank of where they are working and where their children can be connected to. For example, in Noida, we have an Institute of Footwear Design, where the children can go and see what is the curriculum there, where can they get employment after that. The children who are interested in hotel management can go to PUSA. The children who have taken up financial literacy and management, they can go to the stock exchange. They can talk with the taxation lawyers, especially the senior school children, because this is a part of curriculum. And in all these skill subjects, the theory component is very less. It is the practical component which is more. So creating a data bank of parents who can help us tie up with the industry, formalizing it, because after all, the children, we cannot just let them do it for their interest's sake. So when it becomes a part of internal assessment, they know that there has to be a protocol that has to be followed, maybe a survey, maybe an audit, maybe speaking to alumni, maybe speaking to people who are actually on the field, the Delhi tourism, where they get a lot of hands-on on what is the tourism sector about. So these are the ways in which the schools, of course, the teacher deals the theory part, but the practical is done from the experts in the industry itself.
Thank you very much. In fact, just to conclude, because we must conclude on time, and it's just kind of what we try to achieve in this short session. Number one is very interesting to understand that, look, the demand and the supply, the demand of the industry where our kids are going to work, that had changed. And I think that's why it's very important, and which Ajay kind of raised that question at the beginning. That's why we need to change, why we need to bring a skill, because those demands have changed. And as per that demand, in a kind of a reverse calculation method, we need to change. Otherwise, a relevance of the students, the relevance of the employability will be in a big question in the later part. That's very important. Number two things, that's again very important. There are two kinds of institutions that exist. The schools where kids have better facilities, they have better opportunities, they have better resources, and that's why such schools must not only focus on the skill development, because it may or may not that those schools and those kids are going to work in those areas, but definitely appreciation. Especially, I talked about the Bharat and the India concept. There's a very, very important thing, if the India starts appreciating Bharat, I'm pretty confident that people need not to leave their traditional work and become, they need not to choose to be laborers and go and work in the city and migrate. Because why this is happening? Because somehow I personally feel that this connect is not there. And if you look at from all different parts of the country, people are leaving their traditional job. Why? Because the appreciation for their work, and then the connect, because they are not connected with the market. As a school for the skill development, I think this is a very interesting concept to take it forward, that how we can connect India with Bharat, and for that the culture of appreciation, the taste factor, because I personally feel that taste is when you have a taste for art, for theater, for all kind of stuff, that's great. And the third part, what we try to cover in our conversation today is very interestingly, majority of the schools and school teachers, they start with saying it's not possible, it's not doable. And now we got the examples from all of you that, look, this is how you can bring skill to the institution, this is how you can bring. And beautifully, Mrs. Mehta beautifully put in that, You can bring a little bit of formal thing of assessment, like giving a certificate. That's a lovely, brilliant idea. That's one of the finest takeaway for me, that you provide internship for young people so that they must learn. They must learn to kind of the integrity at the early days, and so that then when they're growing up, they have a better understanding. Same way, Ma'am Mankotia beautifully brought out not only kind of talking about the old things, but how to add new things in that personal experience, the way the blue pottery they change it, and same of working with the jail inmates, and same way Ma'am Sunila talked about. So this whole doable thing, and this is very important, that in education, especially in the Indian setup, the first thing is, the answer which will ring in the head is not doable. And people start from there. Majority of the teachers will say, you propose a new idea, you propose something new, and they will say, no, it's not doable. This is outside classroom, it's too tedious. But now here, audience, there are 4 principals. They talk about their experience. They talk about that's doable. And the most important part, I leave you with this 2 thoughts. Number 1, that we as a community, we are teaching our kids to know how to spend money. Fine, unfortunately, and there are very few schools, there are very few parents that are mindful that we need to teach them how money will earn, the process of earning money. Through that, you will create responsible citizens. Through that, you will create people, those who are going to appreciate the whole process of earning. Through that, you will create people who will appreciate art, skill, and those individuals, those vocational things, which is all around us. And that's the most important thing, I guess, as a school, is our social responsibility. Otherwise, what happens, you are learning to spend money, and you simply spend bigger, and through the digital mode, you spend 1,000 rupees in less than a second, and you don't realize that how kind of difficult it is. So thank you very much for your inputs. Over to you, Mr. Malhotra.
Thank you, Dr. Vidikesh, and your absolutely fantastic set of panelists who brought in such a wonderful set of added kind of dimensions to this particular program. And 2 very interesting takeaways for me was, of course, one, of course, the need for a teacher's training in this context, because I think if the teachers are going to be called upon to provide skill development training program, they got to be skilled themselves and probably a few notches above, because children should have become very smart these days. So teachers have got to become smarter, and very rightly put in, I think the constant process of upscaling there. And I do sincerely believe, and all of you would possibly agree, that a teacher is a lifelong student. He or she is first a student, then a teacher. So it's a process which is. And the second was very interesting, connecting the past with the present. And I think this is a dimension which Dr. Priyanka brought in very beautifully. One of the names given to Arjun, Krishna calls Arjun by something like 40 odd different names. Partha, Dhananjaya, Parantapa, etc. One of the beautiful names, only one, it occurs only one time. And that word is Sabyasachi. Now, Sabyasachi is a Sanskrit word which really means ambidextrous. Now, that's where the skill comes in. He's a person who's able to deliver and do, and Arjun had this quality of to be able to be comfortable with both the hands. Of course, apart from being able to shoot in the dark, that is another name. And a great example of skill as an important part of education was brought in by a wonderful anecdote that all of us know, that Dronacharya asking all his students, and Arjun was the one who came up with the right answer, that I see the eye of the bird. And everyone saw the trees and the birds and flowers and everything, and Arjun was one. So that's the kind of so what I'm saying is our history, our heritage is replete with wonderful examples of a tremendous amount of emphasis upon skill. And I think that's, if you can leverage all that and bring in and make it an integral part of our systems, I think it will be extremely important. One more important thing which I want to sort of share with you is that the dexterity part, the cognitive skills can take little time, but the motor skills and kinesthetic skills really can happen only at a very early stage. For some of you, I just want to share, a child born has about 300 bones. And by the time he becomes an adult, he's got about 206. So over 100 bones are fused. So it really means the child at the early age is more flexible, more supple, more adaptable to take on to the skills that you want to sort of impart. So if you sort of get them at the early stage, And I think this is where the skills, somebody asked the question, what is the age to start? Because the different categories of skills, but physical, motor, cognitive skills are all, you can start them as a part of Bloom taxonomy, all of you are familiar with. So I think that's really the critical part. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think I couldn't have asked for a better session here. And I personally seems extremely enlightened about a lot of things that I was not familiar with. And thank you very much, Dr. Vidikosh, Dr. Vimal, and your wonderful team. And I, sincerely sort of thank all of you. And I think now we shall now reassemble very shortly, right away, in fact, right now, with three moderators and extending my grateful gratitude to all of you, rest of you. If you want to stay on, you can watch the proceedings, but you will not be on the screen. On the screen, we'll have three panelists, three moderators, and yours truly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So can we have Dr. Gurmeet Bindra, Dr. Lakshmi, and Dr. Vidikesh? No, Dr. Gurmeet, could you possibly, I understand that I think this, some kind of PPTs to be shown, I'm not very sure, but I hope all of you sent across your PPTs to the backend team, so therefore there you are. So Dr. Bindra, you can start your session. I think you probably have about 5 to 6 minutes to sum up your proceedings.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Malhotra. Indeed, the entire day was very, very enriching. One is, it's like a teacher going through the essays of children and each one coming up with such a different, unique idea to themselves. It's been an absolutely invigorating day for all of us, moderators and panelists alike. I've just put in all the takeaways in sentence form. Just a little context setting again before I put in these takeaways. The takeaways were many, but these, of course, take priority over in the listing. But I loved the constant, relevance of today with our India of yesterday and the day before. Meaning the contextual relevance with the Gurukul, with what Mr. Malhotra just now mentioned about Arjuna, the ambidextrous bit of it, and all of that. I think the Nai Talim that somebody in my session talked about, and how we keep talking about skill development and how this is not so new, but we need a renewed look at the entire thing. And all three sessions brought a very different dimension to the table and had very diverse takeaways, despite all of us talking largely of the same issue. So I'll just go through and read it out, the takeaways that are on our screens this afternoon. So the first takeaway from our session reads, mindful teaching with clear focus on skills, including life skills being transferred, should be done across the school, integrating SUPW, project-based learning, exchange programs, and internships as part of the school fabric. We did discuss in the session about the challenges in the implementation of all of this, but we were in agreement, being very optimistic that all of this is fantastically doable. The second skill, the takeaway to all of us was that schools need to identify skills that they can impart, drawing upon local resources and core values, because we agreed that there are limitations and constraints. So even when we are sending our children out for their visits, there are constraints of safety and security and time and all of that. So we need to build up the facilities and the faculty and draw upon local resources so that the skills in the craftsmen that are not students have the opportunity to transfer them to our children, and our children have the privilege of learning them from the masters of the skill. The third takeaway was that skill development needs special attention from early years with soft skills first, because we all agreed that skill development is not limited to technological skills like AI or any of those. soft skills are a very, very important component. In fact, somebody went on to say that eternal, timeless values must be promoted, because a person, a man with skills but no values can actually be dangerous. But a man with values and no skills is still safer. So the value bit of it was also brought in. Soft skills from a very early age, timeless values to be inculcated from a very early age. We all also deliberated a lot on the importance of the art school, and said, because we had on our panel one principal who was very passionate about art and spoke about how art should not be taught only for art's sake alone, but to introduce technique and technology at an early age, because we all agreed, whether it's art or whether it's any other skill, even embroidery, there is a lot of transfer of learning that happens when we are developing skills in our children. And finally, there were no two opinions that parents need to be educated and teachers must be inspired. We are not using the word trained here, but we are using the word inspired, but inspiration will come from confidence, and confidence will come from training. So parents need to be educated, teachers need to be inspired. Please read trained and educated, so that learning of skills becomes aspirational for our students. There needs to be a growth mindset, a shift in the thinking of parents, and definitely this will come only when we are kind of educating them, and with the support of the schools and with the fantastic support of a document like the NEP, we will be able to reach where we want to. So parents need to be educated, teachers need to be inspired to make the learning aspirational for our students, especially those with special needs. With this, I hand over to my next moderator in the series. Thank you very much once again, everyone, for this opportunity. And may this afternoon, this half a day, actually inspire all of us with takeaways that we bring back to our school and implement them with a lot of positivity and a lot of hope. Thank you very much. God bless us all.
Thank you, Dr. Gurmeet. Wonderful summarization of all that you were able to discuss in the morning and very beautifully presented. Dr. Lakshmi, can we have you now to summarize? Dr. Lakshmi, can you unmute yourself?
Sorry, yeah. I think even after 1.5 years of online, we still have these glitches of mastery of simple technology gestures. It's quite interesting to see the continuation of the first panel discussion to the second, even if it was, the topic was common, but the focus was quite different. And it almost felt like that there's a huge synergy in the sessions that we had conducted. Our major focus was on understanding the kind of passage that we need to look at when we bring skill development from our own childhood to our students' adulthood or the work life. So we're talking about imagining or defining or drafting or crafting a 50-year minimum of continuum, and this backdrop is important for us to envision anything that we also should be able to imagine the future. And there was quite interesting overlap of how the future can look like. And one of the things is that this whole comfort and acceptance of distance learning and online learning, to the extent that panelists talked about the possibility of online universities. However, one of the panelists had a very big concern about its impact on human connect. And today we are talking about students who are able to do online learning, but missing out on the campus life. So in our envisioning for the future, that we need to be cautious and marry the most important core human needs, and also incorporate what the future waits for us. The big emphasis on the skills over simple degrees and certification was another sentiment that was articulated by all the panelists. And very interestingly that, we have had the IT revolution happening for a very long time. But I think the pandemic time and onwards is going to show how inclusive this IT revolution is going to be, whether it's about gender, whether it's about the economic divide, the digital divide, or the whole narrative of the container is going to be quite easy, and the content is going to be easy, possible access, and that will revolutionize in terms of the IT access. From taking the cue on the pandemic time when we hadn't imagined a lifetime like this, in teachers, educators' life, I think it's only the beginning of being able to see or being able to imagine the invisible and the unseen, which kind of prepares us for crisis responses or readiness for ambiguity. So that's another very important dimension from the past, where you had the narrative of quite a linear, well-defined life span, which is unidirectional to pretty unforeseen circumstances that we may have to navigate. In all this, that you have a huge smorgasbord or a serving of so many things that we need to train ourselves as educators, our students and parents. So how does one prioritize? Because the list seems to be endless. The list seems to be like as if a lifetime list that we need to, and probably one avatar won't be enough. So hence, our panelists also spoke about setting some kind of a priority for skill development. And as I mentioned, that in all this, not to lose out on the human connect and the human dimension and human centricity of our discussions. So we discussed very, very crucial, like I said, in this huge list of endless list of, what skills that we need to include and NEP need to focus on, and as a skill development continuum, the panelists had quite a wonderful synergy and agreement on more or less the top one being the socially adaptable and, the change management skill. That's only reality for us, that the change is going to be the constant and things are going to be constantly volatile in the VUCA world. And how do we incorporate that skill of our students being able to, or well, all our educators and the entire ecosystem being able to adapt to the constant changes, and the social skills of connecting with people, connecting with self and working in a team. So a whole big importance was given to the social intelligence as an important skill development component. The second one that, a crucial skill that all the speakers spoke about or enumerated on was a leadership skill, or well, the decision-making skill, specifically responding to the crisis, specifically responding to the situation where you may not have the time and you may not have the luxury of all the factors in your control, a crisis response and a crisis decision-making in that sense. That's the most and the significant skill development that needs to be inclusive. And the third inclusive agenda was the communication skill. That you may have great ideas, you may have great solutions, you may have great navigation skills, but if you're not able to articulate and take your team along or take your workforce along, and I think that is the futuristic skills that, is the most relevant one, is to ability to communicate. And communicate doesn't have to be necessarily in just a good spoken English or a good narrative or a good presentation, but also on the dialogic, negotiation, enrollment, and to argue and to agree to disagree. So we are talking about an entire ecosystem of communication skills that are very, very closely connected with the interpersonal or the social skills. So it's very, very, synergetically, going along with each other. But while we are talking about all this, the aesthetics or the art skills, the skills of artistic expressions, and or not necessarily expressions, but also learn to appreciate and to make sure that these kind of art skills are around us in our educational curriculum is very important. So this is not something as an either or status, but as a more inclusive and a paradigm. And the last but not the least is to have some kind of a tremendous sense of collaborative and teamwork skills. So these were the major focus of and takeaways from our session.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. Again, where you rightly mentioned, I think these three sessions are seamlessly emerging and converging into the next step. And I think eventually when we are all concluding together, we'll probably have a very beautiful imaginative structure, impacting the topic of the day. And it would be interesting for the planners and the educators to have very tangible takeaways from the session today.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, what I liked about is that a lot of these discussions are very doable, not just an academic pedantic discourse. And the second one is that all the skill sets that we're talking about is not necessarily a domain of when the students reach grade 10. I think, a lot of these skill sets have to be so infused from the early years of education as an integral part that this has to be like some kind of a framework in which you embed the subjects, so to say.
Absolutely. I think there's not only the question of curriculum integrating into the entire ecosystem, but I think each and every area has to be skill-based, relatable to the life's challenges. Absolutely. I think our education has to become completely relatable to the life and help us to solve problems. And I think that's going to be the fundamental driving force. Okay, Dr. Vidukesh. And can we have the PPTs? Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as we discussed, the very interesting thing which came up, and we divided our session into two parts. Part A was where we talked about the theory understanding of certain requirements. And obviously part B, which is like kind of an engagement of the school so that the audience gets the benefit and the understanding that whatever we are talking is doable, is possible, and so many schools are doing it. And in kind of learning from the best practices. The first part and the first takeaway, we agreed that the demand and the supply, the requirement of the industry, requirement of the work area is changing, and that's why I think as in school and through curriculum we need to unlearn, relearn, and learn new things. Too much of focus is given to, I'll say, on learning new things. My understanding is, and the whole our group and our panel also, but equally focused on unlearning, because unlearning is the area where kind of there's a huge amount of hurdle there as far as teachers are concerned, as far as the way you've been taught, the way you understand, the way you perceive, the way you define. Say, for example, one of the panelists very beautifully talked about the concept of discipline, that silence is discipline class, and when noise is happening is an indiscipline class. But these kind of things needs to be tackled, because through this unlearning, relearning, and learning process, we will be introducing, will be bringing the skills in our system which are more relevant, and ensure that the students who are passing out from our schools, the students who are getting the education, they remain relevant to the employability, to the world where they're going to work. That's number one. Number two, skilling and schooling has to happen in tandem. That's again a very interesting thing. Earlier what was thing, it was kind of, that's why I always remember the word was extracurricular. Fine, that now something is happening in the class, that is education, and then there's something called extra, but nothing in extra in today's time and on kind of thing. And that's why everything is part of curriculum, and schools need to design, schools need to take into account everything, and obviously they need to plan it in a way that how much time they want to allocate to a certain kind of stuff based on their priority, based on the understanding of the management, based on the policies of the government. But this something needs to be done where you are kind of allocating certain things in a way that your schooling and your skilling is happening in tandem. Next part is when this very, very interesting thing, which is a takeaway that, creating internship. Normally, when we talk about internship in today's time, we only talk at the age of, say, grade 11 or grade 10 onwards. For the college application, especially those students applying abroad. No, they look for internship, but I think we need to bring the internship concept, and this is the understanding and takeaway in our panel, that to the lower level. And one of the principal, she talked about how they have brought it down in their junior level, and so that it allows them to understand the nitty-gritties of that particular job and then appreciate that particular thing. And through this appreciation, you get connected to your community, because that's very important, to remain connected. Otherwise, what is happening, you are learning and knowing about the world, but you are living and creating kind of society which lives on an island, and you're not connected to your community, you're not connected to your local part, which is all around, which is happening all around you. The next and very important part which we discuss is appreciation for the past by connecting to the present, because this is how we discuss India and Bharat concept, that India is the modern India, and and the India which lives in urban areas, which have all the resources, and they are the haves. But then there's a Bharat who doesn't have those resources, doesn't have those opportunities. And how to connect this India to the Bharat, so that the Bharat doesn't need not to migrate to India to become a labor and kind of unskilled thing, because they have their skills in their own areas, in their own zone. And how to support that, because that's again very important thing. And if in a school, if we develop this culture of appreciation, then definitely not necessarily that everyone is going to be kind of in that particular area or field, but they will appreciate, and wherever they will be, because they will have the the capacity to create impact, and through that they will be impacting that particular community and helping that community to build their skills and kind of sustain their skills and sustain their certain thing. And the most important part is upskilling our human resource, that those are teachers, because if we are expecting that things needs to happen and change, and I'm in that way, if I may say, the takeaway of pandemic is the amount of upskilling which happened in every school in this country is phenomenal, and we are very proud of the effort put in by the teachers and the kind amount, because everyone was somehow been very stagnant and very much satisfied with what they have learned and how they have learned, and they were simply kind of putting those things in practice, that okay, let me pass it to the next generation. But the amount, through the force setup and the context, the amount of upskilling which happened in last 1.5 years, but it has to continue. We must not leave it here. And after pandemic also, I guess schools need to be very mindful and ensure that this upskilling keep happening. So these are the 5 takeaways from us. Thank you very much, Mr. Manthan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Vidukesh, for beautifully summarizing your takeaways. And I think collectively all 3 sessions have really converged into a very wonderful bouquet of takeaways which people can certainly take advantage of. One thing which I often repeated is the word which is called change is only constant. It's a statement which is oxymoron in nature. Let me share one more oxymoron statement with you, which is a French proverb which says, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, which really means, translated into simple English, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Now, partly this statement is inspired because of the fact that the human beings have not really changed. Human beings that were there during Mahabharata, during Ramayana period, during Jesus' time, really haven't changed. So therefore, what we're talking about social skills. We're talking about social emotional quotients. Social emotional skills really have to be found, have to constitute the foundation of all humanity. And more so, when we find that technological penetration, technological disruption is taking a heavy toll of humanity overall. The second thing which I was just want to issue a kind of warning, that we are all very upbeat about a lot of upskilling happening during the pandemic times. But let me also tell you, my dear friends, that one thing which really has really gone absolutely haywire is that children, let me say, the biggest skill the children today have been able to learn is to operate the gadgets. Now you need to de-skill them from that. Now how do you strike a balance? Now it's getting skilled to operate the gadgets. I have my grandchildren, and anywhere 7 to 8 hours is a very easy time for them, and very difficult to dissociate from them. So I think it's extremely important for our parents and teachers to make sure that let the technology, like standard, cliche, don't let technology become your master. Use that as a servant, and I think be very effective in terms of. So having said that, I think what we need to do is to create a very broad spectrum of creating a judicious blend of life skills through concepts like adaptability, design thinking, empathy, etc. All these things are talked about. Plus, to be able to actually do it. We Indians have a great capacity. We are great advisors. We try to advise people. We all know what to do, but I think we also must know how to do it. And that's the kind of an art which has to be inculcated amongst our children right from the word go. The dignity of labor, propagated by our ancient times and also further brought in during Mahatma Gandhi's time, somehow down the line lost its relevance. Dignity of labor, in fact, it says, Sahaj Karam Konteya Sadoshami Vinataji. Every work has a significance. Don't give up a work because people's perception about that is not very good. I think, therefore, and finally, one statement which I want to sort of mention here is that when we're choosing the appropriate skills to be brought in, first, it has to have a geographical relevance. Obviously, when you talk about Jaipur, we will talk about blue pottery. We talk about different places, obviously, whatever is available, that printing in Rajasthan. But again, very sound statement which is made in one of our Upanishads, which says, Swabhavam karamam kurnati, niyatam swabhavam niyatam karam kurnati kilvisham. That anything which is consistent to your inherent nature. You see, you can't force people to do something which they don't like. So the skill concept is something which has to be completely in consonance with the inherent, innate nature of the person. So I think that we must very much, otherwise it can be counterproductive. So a combination of all these three platforms, I think we really sort of take our country to a very different level. And as we mentioned in the earlier part, today from 2% of vocational training, skill development component on our education, which is abysmal, which is absolutely pitiable. It's going to be a long journey, but I'm sure we can do it. There are people like you, principals and guiding educators, and so all need to sort of sit down together and make sure that we take the right decisions, and we involve all planners, educators, people in the government, and people like ScooNews, and lastly, the teachers really have to become fully involved. And I think we need a lot of teachers at training academies like the STAR that we started, and several other training programs need to be brought in to make sure that our teachers are also on the same page for this thing to be progressed in a very faster track. Thank you very much, all the panelists, all the moderators, ScooNews, Ravi, you sort of came in the beginning, I'm sure you're right there, and must express our gratitude, gratefulness to host this function, this program. And I'm sure there will be a tremendous amount of takeaways from this. And I'm sure whatever, if you are going to record that, or you can have some kind of a, if you can sharing this can be done with the panelists and the moderators, so they can, start implementing their own perspective. Thank you very much again.
Fantastic. Thank you, our super moderator, Vinod sir. This was amazing. And, it requires a lot of patience to kind of, sit through straight for 3 hours and listen to each of the panelists and make notes, and how beautifully you summarized each panel after it got over. Really, it was an amazing time, for me, who doesn't like to kind of learn a lot, but yeah, when you are hosting these webinars, you have to sit through and kind of listen to each panelist. You never know, one of those moderators could kind of bring me up and ask me questions, so I'm a little scared. But yeah, thank you so much, Vinod sir, for that, and to all the panelists, and of course the speakers and the moderators. Gunmeet ma'am, you remind me of a lady, Arnab Goswami. You have that fire in you. And a lot of people doesn't like being compared to that person, but yeah, that was amazing. The energy in you is really, really amazing. And Vidikesh, I just need a black coffee in that lush green, beautiful campus of yours in Assam Valley. Maybe next year, I'm planning a road trip from Jaipur to London, and your school would certainly come in the way. So might as well, I mean, that is the time when I could kind of come and see you. Thank you, Lakshmi ma'am. This is not the first time that we have had you as the moderator, and it's always, the calmness in you and the kind of knowledge and the experience that you come with. Seriously, amazing. And I'd also like to kind of make a special mention here for our, partner, Saamarthya, Teacher Training Institute, STAR. I mean, they have some really amazing teacher training courses. I mean, for all the folks who are attending this, all our audience. I mean, and also one thing before I actually tell you about that, I mean, there is a huge fatigue out there for webinars, but, when the numbers, I mean, 697 was the highest number today. I mean, this shows that, if you actually delivered some meaningful content, inviting, I mean, some really amazing, educators from all over the country, we still have hundreds and thousands of people who really want to learn. And a lot of feedback that we have been receiving that, sir, I mean, हमारा school का time होता है, हमें पढ़ाना होता है. So I think we are also thinking of changing the time for the upcoming EdFridays so that more and more educators could join. But yeah, I mean, that is one thing I really wanted to mention. And thanks to, STAR, our sponsors. I mean, please, folks, I mean, in the thank you email that you will receive after this, session, I mean, you will have all the details and links. Please do visit them. And a huge shout out to Vinod sir, Gunmeet ma'am, Naina Dillon, Rashmi Malik, and Sanjay Datta, and Suchitra Bhattacharya madam, and Dr. Lakshmi Kumar, Mr. Rajendra Prasad, Dr. Arshia Anjum, Gurmeet sir from Batala, Yogita Kapil ma'am, and Vidukesh, you're there, Dr. Priyanka Mehta, a dear friend of mine, Miss Sunila Atle, and Miss Sunila, if you're there, I mean, a lot of people had kind of put that in chat. I mean, you mentioned about something that has been, released by the Ministry of Education. I mean, of course, I mean, our media, our editorial team is looking forward to that particular piece. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people asked about that. Ajay, thank you so very much. And Archana ma'am, I mean, the only Jaipurite. I mean, we both come from Jaipur, so free black coffee, cup of coffee, I mean, would be easy for me to travel. But thank you so very much, each one of you, and looking forward to a fantastic next Friday, and see you. I mean, please hook on to stuff. And just last piece of advice, I mean, a lot of these amazing educators are now talking during the late evenings on Clubhouse. So, I mean, if, any one of you, really wants to kind of listen to these amazing people, that's an audio only app. So Gunmeet ma'am, I mean, you don't need to actually, do a lot of makeup and stuff like that, or mala wala pen. You can sitting in the pajama and sipping into your black coffee or single malt, whatever you choose to. I mean, you could kind of come and speak there. You could come and listen to some really invigorating sessions, I mean, that we do every, alternate day. So folks, I mean, on your app stores, download Clubhouse app and follow Education India Club, and you'll see all the sessions that we do over there. So that's your late evening learning sessions. And with that, I'll give rest to my voice and look for my lunch. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and see you next Friday. Thank you, Vinod, sir.
Thank you very much.
So,
good shout.
Ravi, I know that Maharashtra is not so much in your beat of travels, but if you come, we'll treat you for the most famous vada pav. Okay?
Vada pav and filter coffee, please. Yeah?
Yes.
Filter coffee should come along.
Yes.
Gurmeet ma'am, aapko unmute karna padega. Please unmute, Gurmeet ma'am. Please unmute and please repeat what you...
I said, Lakshmi, we are with Ravi. He's planning a road trip, and we'll make sure that it's not a small vehicle.
Okay, that's...
Thank you, Vinod. It's been an absolute...
Yeah. As we go along, pick up from state to state, yeah?
No, I do road trip. I have a Jaipur to Goa road trip planned. So, of course, Mumbai will come in between, and I'll come and actually... See, my last name is Santlani. I'm a Sindhi.
Pune.
Pune is also there, yeah. I mean, Mumbai. No. And
Ravi, I must confess. Ravi, I must confess, when I heard this word about super moderator, I was a little confused. You see, all this life I had heard about supermodels walking on the ramp, but super moderator was a term which came to my notice for the first time. And I was wondering, what is that guy supposed to be doing? So everyone told you're supposed to keep quiet. You're not supposed to say very much, let others. But anyway, looking at very inspiring and thought-provoking discussion.
I should actually give the credit where it's due. I mean, this entire term and the entire format came from Colonel Sekhar. So he said that
Okay.
we kind of do events and we attend so many events from different organizations. But again, one panel is not connected to the other and the other one is not connected with the other. And again, we need a summary session because a lot of my friends here said that, when we joined late and, it was a beautiful summary. So I think, the entire format came from Colonel Sekhar. And then we kind of followed it.
Oh, I really love that idea. Like I said, it almost felt like you had the one session kind of flowing into the other. So there wasn't some kind of a three separate segments, but there was a common theme and there was a common connect. And this idea of a summary was so fantastic, Ravi.
Thank you.
Ravi, regarding this, I was so conscious of the time because last time I was in a session, you promptly sent me a message saying, Gurmeet ma'am, we need to wind up. My one eye was on the watch. And when I wound up my first session and Lakshmi said, thank you for this 21st century skill about sticking to the time, it got so cemented that I was in a tearing rush to complete the summary, but lesson learned for next time. I can take it a little more easy than I did, but
no, I was like a student who was overconfident writing an exam out 25 minutes hai, and then I don't know why I assumed it's 11:45 to 12:45, 1 ghanta hoga, and then I get a message, hello, it's already time is over. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. But,
that actually comes out when you have a very short time.
Anyway, I think all went off beautifully.
No, but I think that's also what I felt that, okay, I don't have to cover everything with my team because there is a next one. And I felt that was this beautiful kind of scaffolding that you had from one to another. So it didn't look like three separate segments. I think congratulations for that kind of a planning.
Colonel Sekhar Jindabad, Colonel Sekhar
Colonel is, yeah, I mean, really, he's too good for
with you. And folks, I mean, I'm really, really hungry. It's 1:50. I mean, please let me go.
So are we.
Let's all head back to our work and have a great weekend, each one of you, and see you all next Friday if possible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. चलो अपने आप ही बंद हो गया। कैसा लगा तुमको सेशन?